I'd like to welcome everyone to the LAFCO meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Seves,
Present.
Commissioner Farr, Commissioner Geyer,
Here.
Commissioner Shkanian, Commissioner Lavanino, Commissioner Morehouse, Commissioner Orak,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Stark,
Here.
Commissioner Welts, Commissioner Wolf. Here. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Welts and Commissioner Shkanian are absent, and Commissioner Stark will be the voting member for Commissioner Welts.
Okay, if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on the first item, if we could have a motion to approve the revised minutes of our August 5th meeting.
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, one abstention. Okay, at this time, we open public comment for speakers to speak on items that are not on the agenda.
Chair Geyer and members of the commission, we have one request to speak on public comment, and that is Hillary Hauser.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you. I'm Hillary Hauser from Heal the Ocean. And with just a quick update to the commission, I turned in a couple of pieces of paper to you. And at the last meeting, there was some talk about Los Olivos being too late for public state funding. And so in my communication with Dan Newton, the program manager for the Prop 1 recycling water program, he said if we got it together fast, you know, that even though it was oversubscribed, there was something like 57 million applications that had not gone through because they weren't completed and so forth, but get the facilities plan done as soon as possible, move forward. So I wrote him and said, we were not going to be able to move forward. It was still at LAFCO and where it stays. He wrote back, and I just wanted to report to the commission that on August 30th, he wrote back, no, 23rd, he said, I understand, and you know where to find me when the time is right for a project. So, having said that, when we get a project, whatever it is, whoever's going to do it, the state will be there to help fund. The whole point is to have a buildable project. So on that note, on an earlier meeting, Commissioner Morehouse did make a motion that I thought the commission voted on, which was a monthly update from the group that's doing the studies and the financial studies. And I would like to just please ask that these updates happen so that we all know what's going on. And can it be a report by them to the commission, to the full commission, so that we can all hear what gets said. Thank you very much.
Chair Geyer and members of the commission, we have 3 additional requests on public comment, and we are going to go to Gloria Van Herten to be followed by Winston Craven.
Hello, and thank you for your time. I would just ask that you make the steering committee inform LAFCO and us, the residents of Los Olivos, as to their progress on their studies. As a resident of Los Olivos, I'm asking for your help. We need the sphere of influence to include Los Olivos, as this is being held up. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Winston Craven to be followed by Mark Herthel.
Morning, board members. Thank you for listening to me. like to speak to you about the sphere of influence increase of San Ynez CSD to include Los Olivos. This group of individuals calling themselves the Los Olivos Steering Committee is no more than a small group of self-appointed individuals with lots of money and political pull who choose to hold up the CSD sphere of influence application. They, with their obstructionist activities, have probably cost Los Olivos any shot that they ever had at Prop 1 fundings. It is highly unlikely that any of these studies, which I suppose are now ongoing, will provide Los Olivos with any valuable new information. AECOM has already done an engineering study on the Los Olivos wastewater issue, and it wasn't done that long ago. And further, as far as the financial feasibility study goes, a study financed by a member or members of the Los Olivos Steering Committee should be scrutinized very carefully for accuracy, as this steering committee exhibits a very strong bias against San Ynez CSD providing Los Olivos with wastewater treatment. At the very least, there should be monthly reports to the Los Olivos residents and LAFCO as to what these studies are providing. It should be in a draft form. It is not adequate that they simply make statements like, and I quote, "The studies are on track and moving forward." Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Mark Herthel, to be followed by Karen Jones, who is our final speaker.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here again. This is our monthly update from the Los Olivos Wastewater Steering Committee. Since your last August 5th meeting, we made further progress. AECOM is finalizing their draft of the study that the EHS is conducting, and we've heard that they're going to have it in the next week or two. EAS is going to have some review time, go back to AECOM, but it's supposed to be out this month. Also, the Special District Feasibility Study is on track as well. They expect it to be about 3 weeks behind the AECOM study, but they've been in coordination with each other to make sure they have the right information. Again, we're looking at forming a county service area, establishing a Los Olivos CSD, and then also annexation of San Ynez CSD. Mr. Berkson has been in contact with Jeff Hodge from San Ynez CSD to get all the information on that option, and we're pretty confident it's going to be an amazing study for the residents of Los Olivos and for LAFCO to consider. August 31st, we sent a letter to the county CEO requesting that the county apply for a Prop 1 planning grant. It's a natural extension of the studies that they're already doing. What that would be used for would be some of the environmental documents that are needed for a complete Prop 1 application. And that'll also can look into siting and different things that the focused feasibility study is not doing. We've asked for that again to be entity agnostic, so whatever LAFCO option ends up playing out, that's still good information for the community. And we've scheduled a tentative date for October 24th for our community meeting to get everybody from all the studies, the AECOM representatives, Mr. Berkson, representatives from the county, environmental health, and I would invite any of the LAFCO members that would like to make a evening trip to Los Olivos to attend as well. We're just waiting on a couple more RSVPs from some of the participants in the study, and we'll get that date locked in here in the next week or so. Happy to do any other updates. In the packet, here's the letter to the CEO's office, and along with my updates, and we're happy to be here next month as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karen Jones, who is our final speaker.
This is new to me, but I have been going to the meetings, and I have been watching the meetings that I have not attended. I thank all of you. I especially want to thank my representative, Doreen Farr, who has been great on this and listening to the people whom she represents. And I'm one of those people. I am a stakeholder in SYCSD. I have been since marrying my husband in 1982. He has been a stakeholder since inheriting his house in 1974 from his parents and grandparents. So our family is very vested in this. I've mentioned at the meetings before, I remember when when the sewer was implemented, when our family had that opportunity. And it's a good thing, depending, you know what's going on, you're kept informed. And we were living in Bakersfield at the time, but we were kept informed of what was going on, how it was going to affect us as stakeholders. I don't think that that is happening now with the SYCSD, and it bothers me. I went to a meeting, the August meeting of the Santa Ynez CSD, and if it was not for me and another gentleman, our comments, they had nothing to report, and they blamed you. They blamed LAFCO. And it seemed like excuse making. They said, well, LAFCO didn't tell us. Well, LAFCO didn't do this and that. My son lives in the West Santa Ynez district that was annexed. He found out from his neighbor who made him a copy of the protest form. My son is working a new job. He's got a baby, a wife in nursing school. Most of us remember being young, if we're not young still. So he asked me to drop it off. I went to the office, which is around the corner from our home, and Wendy Berry would not accept my son's protest letter. She said that LAFCO screwed up. This isn't the appropriate time to make a protest. Anyway, the letter never got turned in. And I really loved what Doreen had to say at the last LAFCO meeting. This is a communication problem, and LAFCO and the CSD should be working together on this. And I wonder why I'm not being informed or notified. I understand that it's Los Olivos, it's West Santa Ynez, these other places coming into my district, but how does that affect me? How does that affect my rate, my service, and also how does it affect high-density building? There's just a lot of things going on with very rapid, very high-density building in our beautiful little valley, and those of us that have lived there a long time are concerned that it's not being done in an open and transparent fashion. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate all of you, but particularly Doreen Farr for really representing her constituents here. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment. And next item is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous? Okay, the next item is change of organization, reorganization. If you read that into the record.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, change of organization item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO application 16-4 for the formation of the Cuyama Basin Water District that was continued at the August 5th, 2016 meeting.
Do we have the PowerPoint?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Paul Hood, LAFCO Executive Officer. I have a brief staff report because this matter was continued from your last meeting. Basically, you're responding to an application that was signed by 71% of the landowners within the proposed district boundaries by petition. The proposed district is comprised of a little over 83,000 acres and encompasses portions of the county of Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura counties. However, because the majority of the land and assessed value is in Santa Barbara County, Santa Barbara LAFCO is the principal county for processing this application. There were substantial noticing that had taken place by your commission staff. We mailed out notices to every registered voter and landowner within the proposed boundaries of the LAFCO hearing, within the proposed boundaries of the district in 3 counties. We also published legal notice in 3 separate newspapers, including the Santa Maria Times, the San Luis Obispo Tribune, and the Ventura County Star newspapers. So that was what was taking place as far as noticing. After reviewing the information contained in the August 5th staff report, public testimony, and deliberating, the commission, as I mentioned, continued the meeting to today, September 1st. A couple of directions from the commission were that District 1 outreach to the residents and property owners within the proposed district boundaries. to talk about the proposed formation of the district, respond to questions, and have staff and other agencies and officials and members of the public attend those meetings, or attend that meeting, which took place last Wednesday evening. District 1 supervisor staff held the meeting on August 24th at 6 o'clock. The community was notified adequately. The Cuyama Valley Community Association and stakeholders were invited, and the District 1 staff and supervisor has submitted a report and a letter, which you have on before you today, and there is a substantial amount of information that was generated from questions that were posed and responses, answers to those questions that were provided not only by LAFCO staff, but by a variety of other individuals and agencies. And my understanding is that the supervisor or his staff will present this letter and results of the outreach effort to your commission today. Secondly, the commission asked that the applicant determine if there was a more appropriate agency, an alternative agency to provide services to comply with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA requirements. And I have asked them to respond today as well to talk about special districts. The primary reason that the California Water District was proposed is because it is a landowner voter district. There are a variety of independent districts that have water powers, and you're most familiar, I think, with community services districts, irrigation districts, municipal water districts that are registered voter districts. There is really no hybrid, unless you wanted to have special legislation that could comprise both registered voters and landowners. There was some issues with the Paso Robles groundwater basin where special legislation established a hybrid district, but the voters voted against it by a large margin at the election recently. So the intent of the California Water District and the proponents is that landowners would maintain control over the affairs of the district, and other alternatives would not provide these landowners with this control, which is problematic to some because the registered voters don't have a real significant say in what happens with the district and their compliance with the SGMA requirements. So in conclusion, and this is the same conclusion I had last month, that the proposed district is pretty much set to assume authority over the portion of the SGMA requirements that are within its boundaries, but would still be part of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. There's no overwhelming influence by one district, even if this new district is formed. There are other agencies that would be part of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the plan that's developed over a significant amount of time. And I've asked Tom Fayram from the Water Agency to talk as well a little bit later after the applicants, the proponents, and the District 1 representatives have a chance to speak. So I am recommending, again, that the Commission approve the formation of the district and make the findings outlined in the recommendation on the screen as well as on the in your staff report. And Chairman Geyer has asked me to just talk briefly about what we would expect from the public and the proponents to talk to your commission. We would first invite the District 1 representatives to talk about their outreach effort over the last month since we had our last meeting, and that was direction that your commission gave. They would be allowed 5 minutes to talk about that. Secondly, the proponents of the representative would be allowed also 5 minutes to talk about what they have discovered and tell your commission about alternatives as far as special districts that could be in place of this California Water District. And then we would like to invite the Water Agency representative, Tom Fayram, and his staff to address the issues surrounding the requirements of SGMA and the groundwater sustainability plan that is developed. Following that, Chairman Geyer would like to invite the public to speak. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have one. Could you also state what the powers that the district would be enabled with and what latent powers it would have?
Yes, we've had some discussion about California water districts and what powers they have. They have powers over certain operations and acquisition of water and transmission of water, but these, in this particular instance, legal counsel and myself decided that these are latent powers because the only powers that are being asked for are being able to comply with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act schedule, and any additional powers, be it domestic supply of water to residential construction, industrial, commercial construction, would need to come back to LAFCO for approval. So that pretty much outlines what is being asked for. And there are certain aspects of the district that are conditions of approval that would dissolve the district if they are not complied with. And firstly, it's that they must approve a Proposition 218 assessment district bond no later than your May meeting. I think it's May 3rd or 4th. If that is not approved, then the district would cease to exist. And secondly, that there would be a condition that if they do not enter into this JPA with the rest of the agencies and the water agency that are water purveyors, that they would also cease to exist. And that's contained in the LAFCO resolution that is included in your staff report. And they must do this by December 31st, 2017, or they would dissolve. So there's a couple of safeguards if the district is approved by your commission. If a protest hearing is held and it is not protested and would go to an election, and if that passes, then these other requirements need to take place, the special assessment, Prop 218 election, and entering into a JPA.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hood, I have a couple questions. The first one has to do with the map of the proposed district. And in our packet and in previous packets, we have the map of the proposed district, and it didn't come up on the slide, but we have it in our packet. Was it skipped for some reason? It was page 2 of the presentation.
Excuse me while I go back.
There it is. So that's the map that I think we received at the last meeting. It looks very similar to the map that was presented at that workshop. But then, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, we received a map from staff, which is this map.
Right.
And it's different than any of the maps that we've seen before. This one does delineate, which I think it has to, per the Water District Code, federal lands. But then there's also a lot of parcels that are not included, that are not part of the map.
Right.
And that's new information, and I am wondering why, first of all, why are these maps different? Why don't we have this new map that we just got a couple days ago? Why isn't that the map that we're looking at?
I'm not really sure where that map came from.
This map?
Yeah.
I got it from staff. We had a few. We had a
Came
few.
from the first
we
district. Okay. Came from the first district. I haven't
Okay,
seen the map.
So then, at some point then, because as we know, our maps are really important. And I would like to know which is the accurate map. If it's this one, and if you've seen this one, why is it different? And if that's not the map, then we need to know that.
Commissioner Wolf, the map that we have in your packet is the one that was filed with the petition. So that's the one that we would rely on. Susan Petrovis had it.
When my turn comes, because I can explain all that.
Okay, so this is the proposed map. This is not what you're recommending, Mr. Hood?
No, the map that I'm recommending is the one that's in the staff report. And that's the one that was filed with the petition when it was circulated.
Okay, so there should not be any of these white spaces, but we'll hear from Ms. Petrovich why
Right.
that is the case. Okay. Then the other question I have, this is the last question for now, has to do with the composition of the 5-member elected board of directors. It seems like in the water district code, it says that that you can be the holder of title to land within the district or a legal representative of the holder of title to the land. So those are two options that are in the code. But in the recommendations that we have before us, it seems that there's a recommendation for a third subset, which is a representative designated by the holder of the land to title within the district if the holder has filed with the district written evidence of this designation. So while the code allows for 2 different designations, LAFCO is allowing 3. But in last month's report, it appeared that LAFCO was recommending 2. And so my question is, why now are we expanding the governing body to include another class of people?
There is Commissioner Wolf, there is a corrected resolution that is taken directly from the Water Code as far as the makeup of the 5-member elected board of directors. And the resolution, I think that you should have received that, reads as follows, that the district shall be initially composed of a 5-member elected board of directors, each of whom must be a holder of title to land within the district, the legal representative of a holder of title to land within the district, or a representative designated by a holder of title to land within the district, if the holder has filed with the district written evidence of that designation. So that is what I'm recommending.
Okay, and what I'm asking is, that is in the resolution, but that third designation has been added from last month.
Right.
And it's not in the water code. The water code only includes the first 2, not the third. So you have added a third designation, and I'm wondering why.
My understanding is that it is in the Water Code. I beg to differ, but I could be wrong. I'll take a look and see if that's
Yeah, you can look at
What
in
I
the
included.
governing body of the water code. At least what was provided to us only has the first 2.
I think that what I distributed, what you were looking at, is something that I gave to the First District representative staff when I was asked if I could provide a concise definition of what a California water district is. And it is probably a little dated because I think there were some additions to it that I've contained in the resolution that I drafted for this current meeting that includes that third designation. So that may be incorrect, the one you're looking at.
Okay, so,
It may be a
you know,
little
it's a
dated.
little
I
confusing
apologize for
because
that.
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Because we depend on the information that you're providing is the most up-to-date.
Right.
So if there is new information, Mr. Dillon, if you could just confirm that. I'm okay if it's 3. I don't have a problem with
Right.
that. I just want to understand why. And I think you're giving an explanation, and that is because now there's a new code, or the code has been revised. Is that correct?
I don't know if the code's been revised, but we will check it. It should exactly track the statute. We're not trying to change how board members are elected or how they are eligible. That should come out of the organic statute, and that's
No,
not something.
yeah.
So we're agreeing with you. We'll just have to chase down to make sure we got it right. So
Okay,
we'll do that.
thank
Yeah, and I apologize for the confusion. I think that what you're looking at is something that's a little dated. And I was trying to provide the District 1 staff with kind of a quick summary of, you know, what California Water District is. I didn't actually check that it was the most current in regards to the board members. But what I'm reading to you and what the amended resolution is the most current, because I just drafted that within the last week or 2.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Stark?
I have a couple of questions. If I could start by asking a question about the latent powers question. I was under the impression that once a water district is formed, that under the water code, it gets the power to acquire and operate waterworks by operation of the water code, not by virtue of anything we might do. Once that's their basic power, and they have the ancillary general powers to implement that basic powers. Was I incorrect in that? Is that it has to be activated to specifically let them track works? I noted that the reason I asked is the objecting residents, if I can characterize the letter that we got yesterday, makes specific reference to the authority of the water district once it's formed to move water from one place to another and to make various decisions. And I was curious about the accuracy of that allegation.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stark, Mr. Hood and I have debated this issue a little bit, so I got to give him a little room here for the debate. But it's clear in this petition that they're only filing this petition to get to the table and try to negotiate their way into the joint powers agreement that would then operate under SGMA. They've given you no plan or feasibility study or economic study that shows that they can fulfill or execute or fund any of these types of water projects that are allowed by California water districts. So you don't have any proposal in front of you that would allow or that would give you the comfort to know that they could carry out that function. So I would also point out that all latent powers in statutes are powers that are granted by statute. I mean, the powers that are administered by CSDs are very broad, but they, by definition of statute, they have exercised some of those powers and have not exercised others. So I hear your point, and that's kind of where I think Mr. Hood was starting from. I read it a little differently. I think they still would be latent powers because when you look at the resolution, storage, transmission, distribution of water for irrigation, domestic, industrial, municipal purposes, those are all vastly different types of powers under the water code for this district to pursue projects. But they haven't sought that. They haven't done any capital improvement plan. They haven't done any proposal to do a Prop 218 election to fund any of that. So that's my read, but there could be some debate on this issue.
Mr. Chair, if I might, to that point, might it be an appropriate thing for us to do should we approve the formation of the water district, yet desire to make it crystal clear as to what our intention is to the limited purpose that we could make that explicit in the resolution of approval? Would that at least sort of address that issue?
Right, and that, we had a talk about that earlier, and that was a concern that I had, was to be crystal clear as to what they're being enabled with and what's late.
And I think that's a good idea. I think maybe a clarification here would help drive it home. So we can, if you're going to take action today, we'll at least draft something along that line that you can consider later in the hearing if you're going to go that way.
I have two other questions, one of which could not be simpler and one of which is a little complex. The one that probably should be addressed through the chair to Ms. Petrovich is, where would this proposed water district meet? Don't they have to meet somewhere inside the district that's accessible to people? Where do y'all think about that? Where the community of New Cuyama is outside the boundaries of this district, if I understand right, and the community centers and stuff like that, so they have to find a place to meet. That's the simple question. The complicated question, I think it's complicated, and it might have a simple answer, is with respect to the voting requirement for the GSA, is it required that each county and each public entity have one vote, or is the GSA free to negotiate some form of proportional voting so that there's a different weight to the votes of the respective measure members to the extent that they can figure it out.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stark, the first issue is really a Brown Act issue because the Brown Act requires you to meet within your territory and in a facility that's ADA compliant and things of that nature. And you can have some sort of teleconferencing on occasion, but the majority of the people in that teleconference, I believe, have to be within the jurisdiction when they participate. So how they're going to meet that requirement, they're going to have to figure out between now and their first meeting, because that's a serious concern, the Brown Act. But other than pointing it out, I don't know that you would condition that they have to comply with the Brown Act no matter what, and they're going to have to figure that out.
Right. We don't need to condition them. That's
Yeah.
their issue. The fact is we're approved.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
On the other issue, representation, that's very much, I believe, going to be an issue of negotiation between presumably San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, and if they want to include the CSD or this water district in the JPA, they would also negotiate representation. And the counties may take a permissive approach on that and give them ample representation, or they may give very limited representation. Or they could give no representation. The key is it has to be an agreement. You can't force the counties to sign up to any particular formula. It's very much going to be a matter of sitting down and working out the details. And so I don't know how that's going to work, but I think there's quite a bit of flexibility for the parties to the agreement to decide that. And then it would have to be a JPA, so each respective agency would have to approve it in a public forum, a publicly noticed meeting pursuant to the Brown Act. So, for example, when the county considers it, they'd have to take public testimony. So would San Luis Obispo County, and if these two special, the CSD and the Water District, consider it, they would also have to have Brown Act compliant meetings and get input from the public. So it'd be, at least at that stage, a very transparent process.
Mr. Chair, I have just one short follow-up question for Mr. Dillon. I appreciate the explanation. Is the working group that would be formed to establish the parameters of the negotiation, is that in itself subject to the Brown Act? Or would you have to wrestle with that?
They would wrestle with it. I think normally this is worked out by staffs, respective staffs of each agency, usually in staff-to-staff meetings. Whether they want to have workshops and otherwise include the public, it might be a good idea rather than waiting till you get to the formal Board of Supervisors hearings or because it's going to be a difficult process to manage and keep everybody involved. So they'll probably wrestle with that. But I think technically the staff meeting with the staff, that's not a Brown Act meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hood, in your presentation, when you talked about alternative special districts, you said that the intent of the California Water District proponents is the landowners would maintain control of the affairs of the district. Other alternative district would not provide the landowners with this control. As you know from our last meeting on this, I'm very concerned about the fact that this application calls for a one vote per owned acre of property, which then allows a majority dominance by a handful of landowners in the area, no matter how many landowners might find themselves within the boundaries of the district. Would it have been possible, or would it still be possible, because I do feel strongly that the agricultural interests need to have a seat at the table, that it could be designed so that it was a one vote per landowner rather than a one vote per acre? And it's not a registered voter district, it's still
Right.
a landowner control district.
I think what we're doing, we may have discussed this last month, but I think that we need to comply with the California Water District law that specifies, who can vote based on what criteria. And definitely registered voters are not allowed to vote on this particular issue. And I don't think we can change, what's in the California statutes. And I don't think that's within your legal purview as a LAFCO commission.
So then, let's just say an urban water district like the Goleta Water District, which is a registered voter district, doesn't have individual districts drawn within it. It's just everybody, the board is voted at large to do much the same thing as has been described here, to produce water, to move water, you know, to do all of these things. How is that different than the kind of water district we're talking about here? I mean, could that kind of water district be formed here?
I think that what we're, again, looking at is what was filed with in the proposal that was submitted to your commission. And we discussed, I think, last month that your commission, while it has discretion to approve or amend, with or without amendments, an application is limited in as far as changing the basic district that would be created by your commission. I think that what I asked the proponents to do is come back with some examples, but we discussed this as well between your staff and the proponents and legal counsel as far as what the options are in the jurisdiction that your commission has. You could give direction to the proponents and the property owners, registered voters, to come back with a separate application and, deny this application. But, those are the only options that your commission has. You can't change this into a different kind of district because this is the application that's before you today. If you wanted to, deny it and suggest that they come back with a different kind of district, I think that's within your purview. But you can't significantly change it to a district like the Goleta Water District that's a registered voter district, or to San Ynez Irrigation District that has a significant conservation district, has a significant number of registered voters in the tens of thousands. And what we're dealing here with is a predominantly low inhabited area that is not providing urban services or in need of urban services, but would be controlled by, as you correctly point out, by landowners rather than registered voters in a larger urbanized area such as the ones I've mentioned. So your options are limited. I'm not sure if legal counsel has anything else to say, but I think I'm correct on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. So then the other question I had to do with a couple things that also came up at the last hearing about LAFCO's ability to create a district that has the Cuyama Community Services District as an island in the middle of it. I'd like you to speak to that, and also the fact that there was some question as to whether Cuyama was considered a disadvantaged community, and my understanding is that it does have that official designation, and how would that impact or not LAFCO's decision-making in all of this?
Some very good questions. And actually, we have discussed those, almost all of those issues. And, it's basically your commission policies, unless you change them at the end of the meeting today and give direction. That's one of the items that we're going to be looking at. Say that you discourage from forming islands or creating islands. One is a plus and one's a minus. The Cuyama Community Services District, while it's completely surrounded and not included within the boundaries of the proposed district, had every option to be included, and they opted not to be included, is my understanding, and actually took a neutral position on forming this district. They were not opposed to it. They were not in favor of the larger district that surrounded them. As far as the disadvantaged unincorporated communities, generally that applies in LAFCO law to an area that's adjacent to a city or a district that is excluded from an annexation because they would not be, from a financial standpoint, benefiting the annexing agency. In this case, we're not looking at an area that is in need of services from the district because they are within the Cuyama Community Services District receive water and sewer service from that district, and this new district would not benefit in any way the disadvantaged unincorporated community by being included. So there's several, I guess there's several ways of addressing it, and I don't see it really as an island, even though it may be surrounded by the proposed new district. It would also have the ability to take a place at the table for the Groundwater Sustainability Agency if it applies, and if it's approved, could be treated equally, maybe not with the larger districts, but would have a seat at the table. And they preferred that rather than being included in the new district and having to pay the Prop 218 election assessment. They didn't want to do that.
Well, I totally understand that. I can see why they, want to stand alone so that they have a seat at the table. But, because we're talking about water and the extraction of water, I think having the ability of a new water district to move, construct, et cetera, everything that you talked about before, certainly has the ability now and on into the future to affect the ability of the Community Services District to do what they need to do. It's that physical proximity to whatever wells they're drawing from whatever the new district would be doing, perhaps even immediately adjacent to it. That is the concern. And I understand why they don't want to be in there. I wouldn't want my voice swallowed up by a new district either, but it certainly is going to have the ability to impact the work that they need to do as it's currently designed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So just as a comment, the idea is that there is no island because there's no lack of service. Correct. Okay. Any other?
Right, that's correct. They're not being excluded because they would present a service problem. They're being excluded because they have asked to be excluded, and they already get services, although they may not be in the long term as substantial as they would hope if they were included in the larger district. But it was their decision to do that.
Mr. Stark?
Mr. Chair, through the chair to Mr. Hood, again, I note with respect to the helpful questions from the community meeting, which I found very helpful. Question 1, the answer from the Community Services District, question 1 refers to not the CCSD itself or Cuyama itself as a disadvantaged community, but neighboring disadvantaged communities, I guess, as defined in the water code that are adjacent or near the community service. They're not in the district. Is the same response applicable or the same reasoning applicable?
Well, that's a good question because they are within county unincorporated jurisdiction, so they're not within cities or districts. There is a district, but it's Resource Conservation District, but it's really the county's responsibility to deal with those, what we call ducks.
And if I understand completely, I think I understand this completely. The county is the fallback government as to all of this. If it's unincorporated and it's not within a specifically formed public agency, the county has the oversight responsibility for it. I think that's pretty clear.
That's correct.
Okay, and we'll continue on with the presentation.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, we are now going to hear from the proponents. Susan Petrovich. Oh. Okay, we are now going to hear from First District Eric Friedman.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Guyer and members of the LAFCO. My name is Eric Friedman, and I'm here representing County Supervisor Salud Carbajal, First District Supervisor. And before I begin, you should have all received a letter that he submitted to you that detailed the community outreach that took place. So I'll basically be going over that letter because it explains what took place. So At your previous meeting back in August 5th, the direction was to have a community stakeholder meeting, and out of that, Supervisor Carbajal, along with 5th District Supervisor Lavanino's office, hosted a community meeting that took place last Wednesday, August 24th. At that meeting, approximately 80 to 90 individuals attended, and prior to that, our office had conducted some outreach to the community to receive questions that the community would have, facilitated those questions, and sent those out to the corresponding agencies to answer them. And per the letter that you received, there was approximately 46 detailed questions and responses from staff that came in to that, and that was disseminated at the time. And so at that meeting, again, Supervisor Carbajal and his staff, Valencia Sherrod, who was here last month, attended along with Supervisor Lavanino's Chief of Staff, Corey Bantalan, and representatives from other government agencies, including Assemblymember Williams and Senator Jackson's office. And out of that meeting, they discussed 5 main topics, which were in your letter, all relating to the issues of the formation of the district, the background, and just other information that was out there. And at this time, that was the outreach that was done, and then the letters were submitted to you on our behalf. So if Supervisor Lavanino has anything you'd like to add to that, the meeting took place, and if you have any questions about the letter, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Any questions of the commission?
Is this the appropriate time to thank the First District Office for putting this together, and the other staff and non-staff that worked on it? It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, we are now going to hear from the proponents. Susan Petrovich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Susan Petrovich. Before I start my presentation, though, I did want to point out to you in our petition, on page 3, it says the reasons for the proposal are, and under that is A, the purpose for forming the district would be to provide a public agency with the powers and abilities to, among other things, administer, develop, construct, and operate projects and programs to enhance water supplies to help stabilize the groundwater conditions in the basin, and then, of course, also participate in it goes on to talk about participation in the GSA. Oh, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that our petition does include the anticipation that there will be enhancement of the water supplies to this area, and that there will be conservation, that this water district will be responsible for implementing. That's one thing they bring to the table for the GSA is being able to fund and also organize those. So I just wanted to clarify that that is in our petition, and it is part of what ultimately would occur. Of course, there's nothing on the table, so we're not coming with any kind of package.
Before we start your presentation, then, let me ask a question on that. Then in the resolution under 2C, we wouldn't want to restrict that?
If you do, it will
It would change
prevent
the
us
petition.
from...
Yeah, it would change the petition, right?
Well, it's at the pleasure of the commission that you have not seen any sort of economic plan or proposal to carry out these projects that were very generally alluded to in the petition. So whether you want to turn them loose or have them come back with their plan in a future date, it's up to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that. There'll be some, I know I'm going to have to touch on some of the questions that were asked too, but let me move through this as quickly as I can. First is a map that we gave you last time. I hope that helps outline this proposed basin boundary, this proposed water district boundary. It shows pretty clearly the county lines as well. These are, oh, did you have I'm sorry, I'll stop, I'll go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could reset the clock.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, Ms. Petrovich, so the map I'm referring to, and I'm just trying to find it on my email that I got yesterday. It was from Ernest Conant, and it was addressed to Mr. Hood, and then there was a map, and it was this map.
Yeah, and I'll explain what those
Okay,
gray and white areas are, but this is the official map.
that you see in front of you for this water district. We just added streets and things to get people oriented. So this was our exhibit map. And as I say, I'll explain what that blue and gray and white is when we get to it. And it'll be on, it's here, it's on my PowerPoint.
Oh, it is on your.
It's on my PowerPoint, so I'll get there. Sorry, we didn't mean to create any confusion, just, it's an exhibit, it's an explanatory map, not the actual exhibit to the petition. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this sort of lists the things that I'll be doing in this presentation. The one item that I'm not going to talk about at length, but I wanted to cover it, and that was notice, because some people said people didn't get notice or wrong people got notice. Just to be clear, all of the property owners in this proposed water district boundary got notice at the place where they received their property tax bills. That's the best anyone could do, and that's what the law requires. We do want to apologize for any people who are not in the district who got the notice, but Mr. Hood's required to notice 300 feet beyond the 300-foot radius. So people will have gotten the notice who aren't going to be swept up in this district in any way. They will not be assessed by the district. This notice, I also want to clarify, is for this water district formation only. There's been, even in this last round of questions, confusion, I think, between what the GSA does and what this water district will do. So I'm going to move on. Maybe I could tell you a little more about the community meeting if you're interested, because I was there. Do you want to hear anything about it? About what happened? No? I'll move on. Pardon? No, I know. I don't want to waste my time. And we do want to thank the supervisors for their help. We thought it would be helpful again to depict the Bulletin 118 boundary compared with the water district boundary. The proposed water district falls squarely within the Sigma goals for inclusiveness, local collaboration, and representation. Each affected county will be on the GSA. So will the new Cuyama residents, even if they don't own property or vote, because the CSD will be representing them. But without this water district, the only affected constituency comprises the landowners who will be asked to foot the bill. That's why we ask you to approve this district formation. There was testimony that the landowners within the proposed water district didn't support it. That was at the last meeting. Well, originally, landowners representing 71% of the 83,000 acres of ownership signed that petition. You have in your packet additional petitions. Since your last hearing, 34 more have signed. So you've now got 84% of the owners of the privately owned land in the water district having signed. And that's what this map is. The remaining owners...
Can you stop the clock for a second?
Sorry.
So I appreciate getting this and understanding it, but I just want to tell you that the email that we got doesn't say 84% landowner. It says the Cuyama Basin District proposed. So when we get, that was the confusion for me, is that, this makes sense, but this really threw me. So now I'm understanding. This is just a map of who is in favor.
Yes, and the white is the people who haven't been reached yet. And I should add that the no landowner who has been reached has refused to sign the petition. There has been resounding support. And we did not include the federal lands, which are in gray, in that 84%. We're only talking about the privately owned. And this represents most of the irrigated land in the valley. We believe there are some principles everyone with an interest in the basin shares. Sigma is part of our world, and there's going to be a lot of change. Everyone has to work together to achieve sustainable groundwater pumping. That means there'll be changes in water use, and the changes will impact everyone involved. There'll be more fallowed fields, so that means less ag income. Fewer jobs means some families will move away. Fewer people will impact the local economy. The fallowed fields will result in lower property values and less in the way of tax revenues. Now, a lot of people haven't come to terms with this, but they're going to have to, because this district, if it's formed, will bring money to the GSA, but will also bring ideas for avoiding or minimizing the impacts on the local community, and then the water augmentation projects that I mentioned. We'd like to just quickly hit the concerns. Last time, there was a question about the relationship between the CSD and this water district. I think the LAFCO is clear on this, that the CSD would not be voting on or be assessed by this water district, the CSD customers, and the same is true. The water district property owners would not be voting for board members in the CSD or be assessed by the CSD. Second, the motive for forming the water district. First of all, SGMA is about collaboration. Local landowners can't collaborate if they aren't at the table, and they can't be at the table without this water district, because only public agencies are eligible for the GSA. The water district promotes the goals of SGMA, but it can't dominate the GSA because it's only one of several voices. And this is a slide we showed at the community meeting, and it depicts why and how many different parties. We've got 4 counties, plus we've got the CSD, plus this proposed water district. And actually, we talked a bit about the voting issue. This public, even with the voting structure that Supervisor Farr finds so objectionable, this is still a public agency that's subject to California law pertaining to public agencies, constitutional requirements for equal protection, Proposition 218, and the Brown Act. So it isn't as if this is just going to be a rogue district. All ag operators of all sizes share the same objective when it comes to water, and that is maximizing their access while minimizing their costs, and they're going to have to work together under SGMA. One of the questions had to do with the water district and which water district. We agree with Mr. Hood. We researched this thoroughly. These landowners didn't go to the time, trouble, and expense to form a water district in which they can't vote. Water Conservation District meets landowners' needs when there are major concentrations of residential, urban-type customers. Standing as water conservation as cities like Lompoc and Solvang, plus several other unincorporated communities, and lots of property owner voters. The proposed water district has 120 registered voters in the 83,000 acres, and very few of them are landowners. In fact, a water conservation district would be of no use to these property owners because most don't live in this proposed district. So they would be disenfranchised. So why would they want a district if it were a water conservation district? They still wouldn't have a voice on the GSA. By the way, there's nothing unusual about this district, this California Water District. There are over 100 that we were able to identify in California, and they were all, they're common in rural areas like Cuyama. There is still this lingering question about why the west end was not included in this water district. When the property owners began the process, which included, incidentally, surveyors having to compile property legal descriptions, which takes months. At that time, Santa Barbara County believed DWR was going to approve its petition to change the boundary to what you see in blue. DWR did not approve it, but the water district, the proponents of this water district had already been consulting with the 4 counties, and they concurred that they all agreed this was the best boundary. So there was no reason for the water district not to use this boundary, and it's nothing nefarious. They just didn't, and the counties said that they will represent those property owners outside this water district. Again, this water district's only one of 6 members of the GSA. The fifth and final issue, why don't we think this over a little longer? The district can join at any time. That's just not true. As the county water agency has stated more than once, it would be difficult for the water agency to join the GSA after the JPA agreement has been negotiated and signed. The negotiations are complex, and adding a new player at a later date is no small matter. If the GSA members don't unanimously agree, the district can be excluded from the GSA. There's certainly no time to waste informing the GSA and getting on with the plan. So the point is that this is a train that's leaving the station. It's an express. It has no stops to add new participants. We're out of time, and we need a decision today. And this gives you the schedule. So you can see why we're out of time. And I won't walk through it. You can read it for yourselves. But it leaves a maximum of 2 months for the GSA to get a fully executed JPA agreement from the time this board is able to actually participate, this new water district. 2 months is just not enough time for that. It takes all the boards of all these public agencies to approve it. So that's not realistic. The bottom line is that expertise of agriculture and the economic influence of these people who own the agricultural land is vital to the GSA and to the success of a plan. They'll be financing the plan, and it would be inappropriate to disenfranchise them. No one should be disenfranchised. If I could have just a minute to respond to that late hit that the opponents submitted, which was very long, but this is only one slide. Quickly. None of those 4 signatories to that email are residents or property owners in the proposed district. They are from New Cuyama. Allowing the water district to provide a voice for farmers and ranchers doesn't deprive the local residents of any rights. Their CSD will speak for them, and they get to elect their CSD board members who will select the representative on the GSA. All the petitioners want is to have their voice on the GSA. The water district is not a public agency implementing SGMA. There's been a lot of confusion about this. The water district will just be one participant. Implementing SGMA and carrying out all those things that were alleged in that email is the job of the GSA. The water district will not affect CSD services, but they'll have to work with the CSD. The water district doesn't have the kind of broad powers suggested by these folks. It can't move groundwater around the basin or impose pumping restrictions or regulate land use. The GSA, though, will be monitoring the wells and imposing restrictions as part of implementation of the sustainability plan. Counties, of course, regulate land use. And finally, they contend that this water district isn't in the public interest. Agriculture is not just the single largest industry in Santa Barbara County, it is also the economic engine for the Cuyama. Without it, there'll be fewer jobs and few, if any, businesses. So continuing the viability of the valley agriculture is in the public interest, and engaging the farmers and ranchers in the GSA is the best way to ensure that it occurs. So the formation of the water district is not anything new. Public presentations on the topic began in October last year. There have been public meetings. You've had briefings here twice, June and July, and of course you've had now, this is a second meeting, plus there was the public outreach on August 24. So just in conclusion, the water district formation is supported by the Santa Barbara County District 1 Supervisor, San Luis Obispo County Supervisor for District 4, Santa Barbara County Water Agency staff, and your staff, and the affected landowners. Again, 84% of the affected land is represented in the petition now. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or anything I've missed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, we are now going to hear from the County Water Agency, Tom Fayram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Tom Fayram. I'm Deputy Public Works Director for the County of Santa Barbara, and in that capacity, the Public Works Department oversees the County Water Agency. A lot of the points I wanted to make have been covered both by Mr. Hood and Ms. Petrovich, but I just didn't want to clarify again, because I think there was some confusion about the water district, if approved, would be the GSA and would have all the authority in deciding what happens with water use in the Cuyama Valley, and that I believe neither is true. I believe we will have a GSA that will comprise of 5 members, 4 counties, the CSD, and this water district if approved. I'm sorry, that would make 6. In addition, regarding decisions on how much water is used and restrictions, as we've seen, the state of California ultimately regulates this process and will determine what will happen through the development of a groundwater sustainability plan or a GSP. They have very defined measurement goals that have to be met through the development of a GSP and check-ins throughout the phase-in period to ensure that you're meeting your goals. So while the state has come to many meetings that said groundwater is best managed locally. In fact, their involved oversight is clearly will be there and can be expected. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because I think it ensures transparency and ensures that the sustainability goals will be met. I wanted to answer one last question that might have been from Commissioner Stark regarding public meetings on formation. There are required to have 2 public meetings. We will be kicking that process off upon the conclusion of your proceedings here. Obviously, we need to know the players that are involved. And with that, I would just make myself available for any questions the Commission may have. I also noticed my staff, Frey Crease and Matt Young behind me are here. They've been very involved in this. And then also a representative from San Luis Obispo County as well. Thank you.
Mr. Stark?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I might direct just a couple of questions to Mr. Fairham so I can confirm what I believe to be the case. Is my understanding correct that in order to develop the sustainability plan that's required by Sigma, the GSA, if I could use the acronym, has to do they have to do engineering work. Do they have to determine the safe yield of the basin? So there's some hydrological work, there's some planning work, and there's probably a substantial amount of legal cost. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stark, I believe what you said is accurate. I would point out, however, a significant part of the technical work for the Cuyama Basin has been completed by the Water Agency through our groundwater study with the USGS, which started in the mid-2000s and has recently been concluded. And I might add that the focus of that study was in the main area of the groundwater basin, which the water district basically covers most of the agricultural pumping in the groundwater basin that has caused the overdraft that is now exist. The western area, which is not in the water district, has very little technical data, and our staff is now getting up to speed to start doing the technical work that you just suggested, but it will trail the good amount of work that we've already done, which covers the area that the water district also covers.
I appreciate that response. And just to clarify what I'm pretty sure is the case, that irrespective of what the GSA ultimately does in terms of its regulatory authority over limiting pumping and adopting plans and stuff like that, it does not change the underlying common law regarding groundwater rights, particularly overlying rights of property owners. Is that right? So my understanding from people who claim to be expert about it, not me, is that in the process of this down the road, there are likely to be, or a significant probability, that there will be conflicts between the regulatory agency and the people asserting one sort of private property right or another, which leads me to the conclusion that it's for us to determine whether it's appropriate to have these folks the landowners having a seat at the table or not. Is that basically the lay of the land?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Starks, I won't provide a legal interpretation. I'll leave that to our counsel. We share those concerns, though, that while Sigma explicitly says this does not attack property rights, it also concurrently strictly says there will be sustainability goals met, which hence that conflict exists.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll bring it back to the commission. I have one question for Ms. Petrovich. In your slide where it says landowner confirmation 84%, is that 84% of the voters or 84%
of the land, the acreage?
What percentage
Owners.
of the voters?
Well, there are, you mean in terms of the property owners within the district? How many?
Right.
There are 250 total landowners. I don't know that we did the, I don't think we, well, it actually is, if you look at that map, it's most of the land, so it has to be a pretty high percentage. We don't have an exact percentage of the number of landowners, because many of these landowners own very large pieces of property. But just looking at the map, that blue, with the blue on it, it's virtually all of the land in the basin.
Yeah, I was trying to get an idea of how many
Yeah.
voters represent.
We didn't have a chance to run a percentage in that regard.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. What's the commission's favor? Yes? Okay. I think we have 11 speakers. Do you want to take a 5-minute break first? No? Okay, let's do it.
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, we have 11 requests to speak on this item, and we are going to start in Santa Maria with James Wiggis, to be followed by Casey Walsh.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on the formation of the Cuyama Basin Water District. My name is Jim Wiggis, a fourth-generation farmer rancher in the Vinacopa area of Cuyama Valley. We have family and friends which are both large and small growers in the San Joaquin Valley. Over the years, we have talked a lot about the water situation in our areas of California. Many of these growers farm in one or more water districts. I have never heard any of them say that they have been singled out and treated unfairly. Several of the growers are in water districts with Grimway and or Bolthouse and other large growers, and all again have been treated equally. I have talked to several of these growers on this subject recently and would not be here today supporting the formation of the Cuyama Basin Water District if I felt Grimway or Bolthouse were unethical organizations. Over the years, I have personally dealt with both of these organizations' owners and senior management, and they have never done anything but exactly what we had agreed to do. If they had not, again I say, I would not be here supporting the formation of this district. California water law has worked very well in the formation of water districts throughout this state. As landowners, we are asking you to give us this opportunity to form a district under past and the new water laws. Give us this chance to vote on the formation of the Cuyama Basin Water District. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Casey Walsh, and then we are going to come back here to Santa Barbara for Ann Murr.
Okay, thanks. Esteemed commissioners and public, first I'd like to commend you for all the hard work you've done. All the parties engaged in this process have provided a lot of information and been very thorough about the information they've provided. So I really do appreciate that. I am an academic. I work at UCSB. I'm not an overlier in Cuyama. I don't really have a stake in this in that sense. But I am following the SIGMA process that goes along. And so my comments are sort of about some of the positive things and some of the negative things that I see in this proposal for a water district. I think the positive things, of course, are that local control is being exercised, that the landowners in this district get to have, as they wish, a seat at the table of SIGMA and get to participate in a direct way in the formation of a GSA and a GSP. I think that's commendable. My comments about the sort of negative or potential negative aspects of this echo much of what has already been discussed. Many of the questions that the commissioners have posed were my questions, and I've heard answers. So I'll reiterate a little bit of my concern. And I think it all roots back to this sort of fundamentally undemocratic nature of the water district. There's, of course, evidence that 84% of the land, we don't know about the land owners, which is sort of strange, but 84% of the land, the people who own the land, do favor this. And so clearly within the water district, there's a strong majority that wants to move forward. I can understand that and I respect that. That's fine. Some of the latent powers concern me, and this was also raised by the commissioners. I do wonder about the future. if this is a body that will effectively will have a board that effectively controls the outcome of voting within the water district, and that board can be formed by really just a handful of these 250 landowners, perhaps 5 or 6 could form a board. I worry about what could potentially happen if there is some desire to build infrastructure. If there's some infrastructure that would perhaps produce water but also move it around. And I've heard one of the lawyers saying that that's not a possibility, but it seems to me that's exactly what the proposal is to do, to empower the water district to produce and then convey water. The Cuyama district groundwater basin is varied. There's 9 subbasins. They have different recharge rates. The big landowners who could control the voting and the board and the decisions are all in one of those. They're in the main basin. And so I think in the future about the sort of different requirements of the different subbasins and the different availability of groundwater in these different subbasins, and how decisions about all these subbasins, at least the ones that are included in this water district proposal, can be made by people who are really only in the main basin. So some of my concerns about the latent powers of infrastructure remain there. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are going to come back here to Santa Barbara with Ann Murr, to be followed by Arnott Duncan.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Ann Myrie. I represent my family. We operate a cattle ranch in the proposed basin. We are the largest landowner in the proposed basin. As cattle ranchers, we are very minor users of water. As I listen to you talk about voting, I would like to tell you what happened to me in Paso Robles, where there was a hybrid basin. My sister and my children and I own 4,500 acres in the Paso Robles Basin, and none of us got to vote for or against the formation of the basin because none of us lived on the property, and none of us were registered in the proposed district because my sister lived in the city of Paso Robles, which is a community service district, and I live in southern Monterey County. Now, if you think that's a better way to form a district, I think you're mistaken. Can you imagine denying landowners the right to say if they're going to be in a water district? The district that's before you proposes 1 acre, 1 vote. It's a very traditional district. And then there are other situations such as, where are you going to meet? The Cuyama Elementary School would be a good place to meet. It's not in the community service district. Who's going to represent me and my family if we don't participate in the water district? One of my children, one of my sister's children, or possibly someday one of our grandchildren. We have 1 employee. As the largest landowner in the district, 1 employee, and we also operate 2 BLM allotments that are almost equal to the size of our ranch. So we do our own work. So I think you're making problems for yourself when you try to imagine what's going to happen. In addition to all this, the water board, when it's formed, will have to come up with the way it's organized for selecting board members, but your county is going to be looking over their shoulder, and the state of California is going to be looking over their shoulder, and the water plan will become sustainable. That's the law. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Arnott Duncan, to be followed by Tom Bracken.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner members, thank you for the opportunity to sit at this table, by the way, and actually have some input. I stand before you as a landowner in the Cuyama Valley and also a grower or farmer. We grow organically little baby salad components. You see labeled spring mix, baby spinach, arugula, those types of things. We grow them year round. So we also farm, I lease ground in central Arizona, southwest Arizona, southeast California, Cuyama Valley, and then we also have a small farm in Nipomo. The Cuyama farm is the only farm we own. It was an abandoned horse property that seemingly no one else in the valley wanted. And it was really the only place that we could afford. And we went in and invested money and fixed it up. I wanted to mention to you about the different places that we farm, because everywhere we farm, we're in an irrigation district. And so I really want to support, number one, the formation of this irrigation district, but secondly, the concept of proxy voting as well. I frequently will be a proxy vote for the landowner because they're not in Arizona or California, the area that we're presently farming. And the landowner really feels that it's best to have the water user represent them in whatever capacity a vote may take place or input is required. As far as the 1 acre, 1 vote, all the districts that we're in, every one of them is 1 acre, 1 vote. And it works really well. Honestly, we're not going to be the biggest voting block in the Cuyama Valley, and I feel very comfortable with that system. And I believe you have a really good, not you in particular, but the GSA is set up where there are good checks and balances, so that the counties, the community service district, all sit with the same vote at the one table. There are 6 votes, correct me if I'm wrong. But I really do need the voice to come collectively with the other growers, the other landowners, to have the ability. I really look forward to the ability to sit down with everybody and start to really have a collective voice about what's working best. What types of opportunities do we have to work as an entire irrigation district to conserve water? What's working best for you? What's working best for me? And honestly, as I hear you talk about maybe adding some wording, really be careful about that. There are wonderful things that we've been able to accomplish in some of the irrigation districts collectively as far as how we look to conserve water. Some of it does involve moving water around a little bit. And honestly, I haven't talked to anybody else in here. This is literally just me spitballing. But sometimes you can have just enough water to irrigate your land by leaving your wells on all the time. It's a small amount of water. It totally depends on the capacity that you've got, the volume of water. But imagine if you could collectively put your wells together with others and be able to, through increased timing efficiency, in other words, not needing to irrigate while it's windy or the hottest part of the day. Imagine having the ability to share water and move it around between neighbors and be able to apply at the right time. So please, don't be afraid of the wording of something as simple as moving water around. I understand it creates a visual of a negative connotation, but it also can be very, really can help to increase water application efficiencies.
Thank you.
Anyway, thanks very much. Guess I got to go.
Our next speaker is Tom Bracken, to be followed by Kathy Martin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Tom Bracken with Sunridge Nurseries. I'd like to thank the Commission and Supervisors Carbajal and Lavanino for facilitating the information forum last week. It was extremely helpful in walking through the process of the implementation of SGMA and the roles of the state, counties, and local agencies. Sunridge Nurseries is one of the smaller farmers in the area, farming just 300 acres near the town of New Cuyama. Despite our relatively small size, we are very much in favor of the formation of the district, as we see the district as the only method of protecting our rights as property owners. The opponents of the formation of the district have portrayed it as a David versus Goliath scenario. This is absolutely not the case. All the residents and farmers in the basin have concerns about the sustainability of the basin's water supply, and it's essential that locals have input into the process to ensure the best possible outcome. Farmers in the basin recognize that cuts must be made across the board for the basin to achieve sustainability. The town of New Cuyama has historically had a very stable water supply, good wells, and it's excluded from the district. However, many speaking in opposition of the district are from the township, which is not a part of the district. Opponents argue that 4 property owners will dominate the district's board, thereby influencing all decisions in their favor as the GSP is formulated. This is not the case. There will be 6 players at the table, as we've already covered, including the proposed district, New Cuyama CCSD, and the counties of Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Kern, and Ventura. The district's directors will be elected by vote, and the district's vote will comprise 1/6 of the parties involved in drafting the GSP. Additionally, various state agencies will have oversight at every level. Opponents of the district argue that the district does not encompass the entire water basin of the valley. There's some debate about this, but the district does encompass the majority of the irrigated lands in the basin, which is where the usage is most intense. The proposed boundaries were those suggested by all 4 counties and roughly conform to the USGS study. There's an argument that there's no urgency in creating this district, that the deadline is more than half a year away. The elections and process will take time to implement. It cannot be accomplished in 60 or 90 days. By voting affirmatively today, we will barely squeak under the June 30th, 17 wire for compliance. Not achieving that deadline will put the basin in violation, subjecting all property owners to increased scrutiny, intrusion, and costs assessed by the state. At last week's forum, Sam Bolin Bryan of the State Water Resources Control Board was very direct in his comments that the basin would be far better off forming the district for local control, and that should the state take over administration of the basin, it would be far more costly for all involved and would subject the entire basin to far greater state intrusion. In summary, I encourage the Commission to support the application, because if not now, then when? Nothing will change the current situation, and the players should the situation be reconsidered in a month or a year from now. Sigma has dictated our situation, and the formation of this district is the best way to manage it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kathy Martin, to be followed by Patty Poray.
Good afternoon. I'm with the County of San Luis Obispo. Basically, the County of San Luis Obispo is in support of the formation of the new water district. The big picture is the formation will help a new entity be formed for management for Sigma, along with the other eligible entities of the counties and the CSD. The formation of the new water district aligns with the current county board supervisors' adoption of establishing community-focused GSA based on cooperative interagency and stakeholder relationships in order to comply with GSA formations. To help show support, on July 12th, the County Board of Supervisors authorized a letter of support for the formation of the proposed water district. We urge your Commission to time consideration application, as the outcome has implications to Sigma, because the timeline is approaching readily. I appreciate your time and consideration for the formation of the new district. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patty Poray, to be followed by Derek Urosik.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners, for this opportunity to speak with you again today. And for my presentation to you the last time, I am here representing Groomway Farms. We are one of those large landowners in the community. We've been there for about 30 years. We are still a family-owned company. As I indicated prior in our previous conversation, the owners of our company passed away early in life, and so it is still being run by the kids, and they're doing a great job. We grow vegetables and carrots in the Cuyama Valley, and we have one of the largest employers as well in the valley. And as Sigma moves forward, we're very concerned about that, keeping our people employed, because we do understand as Sigma moves forward, there will be a reduction of groundwater. We all are aware of that. It's inevitable. And so we have to make some really hard decisions, but decisions that will have to be made. So we're feeling that the best place for us to be able to work and minimize those impacts is to actually have a chance to be at the table. And the formation of this water district gives us that opportunity. And also what it also does, it allows us, as was stated earlier, the opportunity to bring what we have, which is our expertise on how farming works. And that is just the other part, is that as agricultural and any industry gets better, our technology gets better. So what better way than to have those of us at the table who can bring that knowledge up front and thusly assist in making the plan successful. Because as a meeting I was yesterday with the State Water Board, actually I was here in San Luis, up the north, and they were very, very to the point, telling us if they have to intervene, that is not going to be a nice plan. They will literally make plans that will say you will stop everything. So they are at the state level are really contemplating that if we're not successful in getting a plan that meets their standards, they are going to have to be, unfortunately, the bad guy. So there is our motivation. We all need to work collaboratively in order for us to all be successful in that valley. And so as we look at it, we're hoping that you see that and that you support the formation of the water district. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Derek Urosek, to be followed by Jean Zanin.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you, the chairman, and the commissioners for allowing me to speak today. My name is Derek Urosek, and I work for the Bolthouse family. The Bolthouse family is a fourth-generation landowner in the Cuyama Valley. We have been a landowner in the valley for over 35 years. We are one of the signed petitioners in support of the Cuyama Basin Water District. One of the reasons to support the water district is that it gives us an opportunity for landowners to work with other landowners and other participants, including the CCSD and county officials, to create a sustainable water plan for the Cuyama Basin. It is important to remember that the rural water districts have been successful for over 100 years in California. The formation of the water district gives each landowner, large and small, a voice to be heard at the GSA table. As Susan pointed out, we have overwhelming support for almost all landowners, large and small, county officials, and staff. The reason for this strong support is that we all believe that this district is needed and that it has the ability to serve its landowners and the interests of the entire basin. The Bolthouse family and I urge you to vote yes on the formation of the Cuyama Basin Water District. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jean Zanin, to be followed by Byron Albano.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Gene Zanin. Our family has been growing pistachios in the Cuyama Valley since 1991. I had some comments last time, and I would sort of like to continue on what happened in the prior get-together. Ms. Petrovich said my notice, I had not been noticed was ridiculous. I never said I didn't get noticed. In fact, I got noticed 11 times because we own various property. What I did say was when we signed the petition, and I was one of the signers, there was nothing in there that talked about 1 acre, 1 vote. So I wanted to make that clear that that was not part of the process. Like to sort of say that notwithstanding the fact that there's some significant deadlines, it's not necessarily a good time to create bad legislation. This is a process. It's a new process. Everybody's trying to figure out what it is, and unfortunately that doesn't happen overnight. So I would encourage you to make sure, if you are going to approve this, that you allow follow-up and additional input in terms of some of the concerns we have on the ground. For example, the largest grower on the east side of the valley on Highway 33, in response to the critical water situation, has planted out everything they own. they put in new wells, new reservoirs. The consequences are that Venicopa is basically hauling water, the town site. Other domestic wells have gone down, and pretty much that's happened throughout the valley. It's been pretty much totally planted out. Water is being moved 3 or 4 miles from areas where water exists to where water didn't exist. It is being planted. So the whole nation of moving water could be a critical thing. We're in the Venicopa Highlands, which has a less critical overdraft situation, the other things. Does that mean that the purveyors in the other parts of the valley could, by eminent domain, move water from that aquifer to their situation is what's more critical? I think there's a lot of these questions that are very fundamental. So I hope you, in approving this, would allow that there is additional input to really deal with some of the on-the-ground concerns of a lot of us in the valley that don't necessarily agree that 4 or 5 major landowners who have, in effect, created the problem are the ones that are going to make the decisions on how to resolve it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Byron Albano, to be followed by Bob Goshen, who is our final speaker.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to address the commission here. I'm farming 300 plus acres of apples up in the head of the valley, up in the Venicopa Highlands area, and a couple hundred acres of hay also. We've been there with my family since about 1980. And, we're all concerned with what the Strategic Groundwater Management Act is going to mean to us. My specific concerns have a lot to do with permanent crops. They have to do with, switching out to drip irrigation, fallowing alfalfa fields, which are very low value, to prioritize our apples, which are high value. I want to support that we need a voice and we need to form this, and we need to form it soon, now, because we're looking for answers to some of these questions. We're looking for direction. And I just want to give you one example of like a local issue that you probably wouldn't think of, but when it comes to our apples, frost protection is very important. We use a lot of water in the springtime during bloom to protect the apples from freezing as they're forming. There's very little transpiration going on in the trees, if at all. And my question is this going to be water usage, or am I just pumping and cycling water? Because to me, we're not transpiring. But these questions are not going to even begin to get answered until we move forward and we have some local voice and we start to bring our expertise in and we start to talk to our neighbors about the direction of this. My fear is that if we don't move in that direction, then from far away, or worse, the Department of Water Resources, we're going to have this specter of some kind of oppressive cuts that could come, indiscriminate cuts to water usage that really don't factor in a local solution at all. And I think we're just really looking for direction, and we're looking to collaborate. And I guess my feeling as one of the smaller growers and one of the less impacted areas of the valley is the SGMA still impacts us very significantly. It really prevents my ability to plan, even right now, at this point in time. I don't know what's going to happen next. It's very hard to take out hay and put in drip apples and make that investment when I don't know what's going to happen. And as Gene just referenced, we have another grower nearby. Their solution has been plant every single corner in grapes. And I can't say they're wrong to do that. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's coming. And so people are all reacting in weird ways. And we really need to iron this out. We need to get moving. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Bob Goshen, who is our final speaker.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Bob Goshen. I'm managing member of Kern Ridge Growers, LLC. As a landowner within the proposed district, I am in support of forming the Coyama Basin Water District. We own approximately 1,000 acres in the proposed district. Kern Ridge has been farming the Coyama Valley for the past 13 years. In addition to the 1,000 acres we own, Kern Ridge leases another 1,000 acres in the basin. This water district provides me, as a landowner, an opportunity to have a local voice and a seat at the table as the SIGMA process moves forward. Through the Water District representation on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, we farmers can provide ideas and perspective as to how proposed changes can affect the farming environment in the Coyama Basin. The agricultural industry is the economic foundation in the Coyama Valley. It is inconceivable that the farmers and ranchers would not be at the GSA table. The proposed water district sees itself as working with the counties and the Coyama Community Service District to work to maintain the economic foundation as much as possible as we all move forward together to design a groundwater sustainability plan that works best for our basin and that meets state requirements. Kern Ridge is continually working on ways to reduce water usage without sacrificing quality or yields. We have recently replaced our aluminum pipe with yellow line pipe to reduce unnecessary runoff and minimize leakage. We've also started a program with monitoring probes to access the moisture level in the ground and improve the decision-making process when deciding when and how much water to put on the crop. Water is the lifeblood of farming, and we are continually researching ways to reduce the water necessary to grow our crops. In conclusion, we believe the best way to develop a groundwater sustainability plan that works for the Coyama Valley Basin is by allowing local landowners, both big and small, to work together to implement a GSP that not only meets the state's requirements, but also minimizes the financial burdens that we all face. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Morehouse.
Mr. Chair, before the commission starts, do you want me to answer a couple of earlier questions for clarification? Okay, thank you. Starting with Commissioner Wolf's comment, the document you consulted, it looks like it's an excerpt from the San Diego LAFCO pamphlet or handbook on how to, get through the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, and it's a great resource. We all have a copy of it. I'm not sure when this was last updated, but I conferred with Mr. Hood and checked the water code, and his what he put into the resolution exactly quotes the provisions of Water Code Section 34700, and that third point that you thought was added, Commissioner Wolf, perhaps it was added after the last time they updated this particular handbook. But he took it right out of the statute, and that's appropriate. So I think we're good there.
I appreciate you looking that up. Thank you.
The only other point, I think, there's another point. On the process for if the counties enter into JPA and at a later date, this water district, assuming it's created, wanted to be added, Ms. Petrovich correctly stated all of the members to the JPA would have to agree to that. It's not the SIGMA agency that would be adding the water district to the board of the agency. Rather, all the JPA members would have to agree to that. Additionally, the state of California has a right to approve that amendment to the JPA that changes the configuration of the GSA. So there's actually even an additional hurdle. All the members to the JPA would have to agree, and then the state would have to sign off on it. I don't know if that would be a difficult authorization to get, but it's just one more thing that would have to occur if it occurs after the JPA is formed. The final comment I wanted to make, and I admit it's not clear, but in the issue of the other authorities of this particular water district, under the code, they do have quite a bit of authority to, acquire, plan, construct, maintain, improve, operate various facilities related to water. And that's actually the traditional role of a California water district. I would point out that in addition to, my interpretation that I think their entire focus was to really get to the table to try to join the JPA and be part of SIGMA, the Water Code gives the GSA similar authority to operate facilities necessary to move water around, acquire water rights, seek various, storage, retention, and percolation programs, and that's outlined in Water Code Section 10726.2. So one thing that might be a concern here, you can do whatever you want, but one thing you might be concerned about here is authorizing in the exact same water basin area 2 agencies to basically build similar facilities to manage and transfer and deal with water. So certainly the bigger scheme, the more comprehensive scheme, I think would be Sigma, because it got an important planning and regulatory role to that agency, to that statute. The Water District, it's a public agency, but they really, in my interpretation, and Paul and I have gone back and forth on this a little bit, but my interpretation was that this was really about getting them to the table so that they could try to see if they could join the JPA and participate that way. So, but it's at the discretion of the commission. We could add language to the resolution if you want to pin this down, but it's up, I think, for your debate.
Okay. Commissioner Morehouse?
So we're bringing it back for comment? Is that what we're doing now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was happy to see that stakeholder outreach was done in the Kiama Valley. I think that was needed, and I'm glad to see that the First District Supervisor's Office stepped up and took that by the reins. I am concerned that the smaller farmer and the smaller landowner will have a limited role, based on the 1 acre, 1 vote. I hope that doesn't keep you quiet, as a smaller farmer, because let your voice be heard, and hopefully everybody in the Kiama Valley can come together and create a great plan to make it sustainable for the future. What I've seen is that California farmers are under attack right now with regulations and laws. We've got the Northern California and the Southern California issue with water rights, protecting the smelt at the expense of Southern California farmers has made it very difficult for you. We even have our local legislatures passing laws making it more difficult to financially sustain your farms. An example recently is AB 1066. The availability of water, along with what legislatures are doing to California farmers, is making farming economically challenged, difficult to sustain, viable industry for the future. Good luck to you, farmers. I support you, and I will support the formation of this district.
Thank you. Commissioner Farber?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Well, it's been clear from the beginning by the proponents' own words as well that the driving force behind the formation of the district is the Sigma process. But, I think it's important to kind of take it out of that context and say, if Sigma weren't happening, if it was an issue, would we think that the formation of this district was a good idea? What is their purpose? Through the formation of a district, we would be granting them a lot of power and authority and the ability, and how would that benefit everyone within the proposed boundaries? And I think that, these concerns have come out in this discussion about, well, what powers are we actually giving to them now? How could those be used? The discussion about latent powers and so on. And so, we're being asked now to give them a lot of power and authority as an agency that has the ability to affect many people that live within the boundaries and outside of the boundaries. And so, to me, this is not just about who owns land and who's pumping water, but who's going to be affected by that pumping and our responsibility to them. And I really think that, if you're going to live in an area of an agency jurisdiction that's going to be able to affect my home and my property, then it's important to have an equitable vote. And so that's why I'm such a strong proponent of registered voter districts. And as you know, I've just had great difficulty with this 1 acre, 1 vote concept from the very beginning. And I realize it's in the water code and it may be out there in other places, but I think in this case what makes it particularly problematic for me is because the ownership of the area's land is not, evenly distributed, and that we know already that a majority of the votes can be controlled by a handful of very large landowners. What even makes it worse for me is this whole idea of the use of proxies. So, if a district is formed and the voting is dominated by those large landowners and they have their representatives voted to the board, that it's not even those people that could be making the decisions, because they have the ability then to in turn assign their vote to a proxy, which could be a corporate attorney. So that removes the direct decision making and the direct contact and impact that we normally see in a more democratic process, where if decisions are being made that you don't like, that you have a more direct ability to affect the outcome or change the composition of the board. And so, again, I think this is not just about Sigma, but about forming an agency in this way that's going to be able to affect people. And so, as I said last time, I really think that agriculture, needs to have a seat at the table. I'm not opposed to the formation of a district, just not this district. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wolf?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hood, in the resolution that we have before us, there isn't anything in here about the 1 acre, 1 vote. Does that have to be in our resolution?
No, that's contained in the water code.
Okay. And in the water code, because again, going back to that
Right.
paper that I got, that I don't know how I got it, but anyway, it says in here, if an equalized assessment book of the district does not exist, then each voter shall be entitled to cast 1 vote for each acre owned by the voter within the district, provided that if the voter owns less than 1 acre, then the voter shall be entitled to 1 vote, and any fraction shall be rounded to the nearest full acre. So this is the only time I've seen that. So is that what we are voting on?
The section refers to districts that are in existence that have an equalized assessment role, and districts that are new that do not have an equalized assessment role because they have no taxing authority and don't exist. So the end section that you read is what is correct.
Okay, so that will be included
Yes.
in, even though it's not in our resolution,
It's in the water code.
it's in the water code.
Yes.
And we don't have to put that anywhere in any of our documentation.
No, we don't. It
Okay.
is confusing, but that's the way the statute reads.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I could just say, first of all, thank you everyone for coming, and I also want to thank our 1st District and 5th District for all of the work that's been done on this issue, and I think the extensive work that went into putting on that community forum. While I wasn't at the last meeting, I did listen to the tape, and I've had a lot of questions about this. As someone spoke, they called this a unique rural water district. I don't know if that's an official title, but in my mind, that's what it feels like. This is very unique and very rural, and I look at it as really an opportunity to give these folks, if you look at the map, which now I know which map to look at, that it is, to me, it's giving a large group of rural landowners, farmers, a voice that was really only part of the community services district. So I look at it as an opportunity to give greater voice to that community. So, and then of course, as it's written in the resolution, we've talked about latent powers and the issues that that this agency could do, but there is a specific provision about it being, that the purpose of it being established was to participate in the GSA. I do think that is very important. It makes sense to me. I think this is it's very well thought out, and I will be supporting it if there is a motion to move forward. Or I'll make the motion if no one else does.
Commissioner Stark?
Yes. I have a good deal of trepidation about this. And if you don't mind, it seems to me that the traditional regulatory model is like a binary model. You have a regulatory agency and a regulated community, and it's one-on-one and occasionally pretty acrimonious and adversarial. And it seems to me that given the long history of water wars in this county, and you look at today's Independent, and when they're talking about some goings on with Lake Cachuma, in which apparently the level of trust between agencies is rock bottom, and it just occurs to me that's not going to feed the bulldog here. That in order to make anything work in this isolated, area and basin, you need a high degree of collaboration and cooperation between the various folks that are at the table. I would be a little, in favor of having some degree of limitation or guaranteed review. As we mentioned earlier, I think that would be helpful. I wish folks luck. If I get right, if the counties and the community services district and the new water district can't reach agreement on the GSA, then it goes into default mode, I think, and the respective counties have the responsibility, and this district ceases to exist or could cease to exist. Is that right? I was sort of like reluctant to support it, but I think the alternative is worse. So I guess I'll be voting for it. I would like to hear staff on some conditions.
Mr. Chair? I've tried a few different versions of this, but this is the best I could do. It's not going to be very artful, but I think it'll pin it down. And in the resolution at the end of paragraph C, which paragraph C under subparagraph C under paragraph 2, after that description of all those statutory authorities out of the Water Code, I would just add the language, or recommend you consider adding the language, notwithstanding these statutory authorities, these powers are designated to be latent powers of the district.
I have a question about that. Because we don't get a copy of the application, are the powers in C, 2C, consistent with the application?
Ms. Petrovich quoted the application. I don't have it in front of me, so it sounds like it is consistent with what they applied for. That's why I also advised you have some discretion here, because you can go either way. But if you want to consider making it clear that the powers are latent, I would add the language I offered. If you don't want to do that, then you don't have to do that.
It seems like it'd be a little difficult to do because the actual power that you're enabling with isn't spelled out.
Well, I think it's, when you look at the rest of the resolution, which makes it clear that they have to do both the Prop 218 election approval, and they also have to join the JPA by the end of next year. If they don't do both of those, they cease to exist. So while maybe an additional statement of purpose would have helped, I think clearly the overall intent of the resolution is if they don't sign the JPA and are successful there, then this agency fades. We did not want to have another repeat of an unnamed district in North County that we found impossible to dissolve because we had a landowner protest. I mean, it's hard to get rid of agencies.
Okay, does this agency, this district, have assessment ability in order to enable some of these latent powers? Okay, so really, in a way, that tends to balance out the 1 acre, 1 vote. Because if you're going to assess to build infrastructure, the larger landowner is going to wind up assessing themselves to a greater degree. So that balances it out.
But doesn't it change?
I mean, normally I don't feel favorable towards that type of a vote, a weighted vote. But as long as they have the ability to assess, and they're assessing themselves to a greater degree, it seems to balance it out. I feel, too, that this is the start of a voice, and something does need to be done. And it does have a lot of support, not only from our county, but from San Luis County. So I feel good about that. So I'm in support of the formation. Commissioner Seves?
Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Last month, I didn't know which way I was going. I don't think I had a lot of information to convince me. I was a little concerned with the 1 acre, 1 vote. But today was a real educational experience. Understanding the water laws a little better, understanding what our limitations are, but hearing from the different farmers. I'm sorry I didn't write your names down, but the one woman from Monterey County, where you own property, you have no voice. And you farm it, you have no voice. Makes no sense to me. The other gentleman that farms all over the world, or all over the United States, talks about how he has voices in the different areas, but he did not register to vote there, and in some properties he's just leasing it, he's not owning it. But if you can have a say to your operation, it just doesn't make sense to me. So again, I thank you for educating me, and I definitely will be supporting the measure. In fact, if Commissioner Wolf wants to make the motion, I'll be glad to second it. Mr. Lavanino wants to say.
Commissioner Wolf?
Well,
I had one last comment before.
Yes.
I wanted to thank Supervisor Carbajal and his staff for pretty much carrying I was going to say carry the water on this one, but that sounds a little weird. They did the heavy lifting, but I just want, and I know I've talked to him, just make that commitment to those folks that are on the west side that feel like they kind of got left out of this whole thing, and that they might not have a voice, is that our county staff is going to be very vigilant on their behalf, and I think they're going to be well represented with the county having, looking over everybody's shoulder on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf?
Yes. I want to thank everybody, and this has been a monumental event for a rural farm area. How's that sound? You like that? I do too, and having driven through there and understanding and having been involved in litigation in Santa Maria Valley, I know the importance of, I think, avoiding that, but Big Brother, the state, may supersede that at some point in time. We're always have that specter, but I think to act now, and with the enormous amount of oversight, I mean, the counties are going to be involved, and the districts that are going to be involved, and the review and all the other things that come out of this event, I guess it's easier to take control of yourself than to wait for Big Brother to hand it to you, and then you have no say so. And as a farmer or property owner, I would just be devastated to wait for Uncle Sugar to come down on us. The democratic impact here, I guess, that I keep hearing is that there's a hell of a lot of democracy going on, because you've got a number of counties and other agencies that are participating for everyone's benefit, and the ultimate product is going to be the state's approval of what you put together. That's the bottom line as I see it, and I don't know, maybe I'm off in that. But the water statutes and all the other things that precede anyone doing shenanigans, and I haven't really heard evidence of anyone saying, well, up in county, the big guys just kick the crap out of the little guys, and I haven't heard anyone saying, well, let's look up what's happened up there. So the economic impact is that we all have to come together, and make this happen, because with the drought and the pumpage and everything else, we're all going to be facing the same fate. Lack of water and cooperation is not a positive thing. So I do support moving ahead with trying to get this underway, I think frankly, as soon as possible.
Supervisor or Commissioner Wolf.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make a motion, but I just need, I have a question for Mr. Hood first on the recommendation for the approval. If you look at 2B, it says the district shall initially be composed of a 5-member elected board, each of whom must be a landowner within the district. So now that we know that that's modified, so what I'm going to do is just change B and make it and say the following, that the district shall be initially composed of a 5-member elected board of directors and selected per resolution 1604. Okay. All right. So then, other than that change, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move this item number 1, which is the find that's categorically exempt. Number 2, approve the proposal known as the formation of the Cuyama Basin, A, B, C, D, E, and F.
And I would second and ask for a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I inquire as to whether the maker and the seconder motion would think it is desirable to include the language that Mr. Dillon suggested about the latent powers?
I think I'm just going to leave it as it is, and then we'll see how the vote, how it goes.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse?
Aye.
Commissioner Orac?
Aye.
Commissioner Stark?
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Guyer?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
And with that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order.
Make it look fancy. Fancy schmancy. Oops, I forgot to slip that. I got a glass of wine or two with my wife to go to.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order, and the next item is business item 1.
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, business item number 1 is to consider a report on the 2016 Cal LAFCO Annual Conference in Santa Barbara and provide direction to staff as necessary.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Hood, Executive Officer. I just had a couple of quick comments that you probably noted that today is September 1 and our conference is coming up on October 26th. So we've been looking at this for a long time, and we're getting pretty close to making some final decisions and actually welcoming the folks from Cal LAFCO to Santa Barbara County. So we are almost finalized. There's a couple of things that are still kind of up in the air that I wanted to talk to you about. One of those is the keynote speaker for Wednesday. I included a copy of the program in your agenda packet. We were trying to nail this down. It's been kind of difficult, and we have a couple of folks that have not been able to make it because they have a scheduling conflict. They're addressing different groups around the state or around the country, for that matter. But we had someone, and Commissioner Morehouse has been talking with someone. It's actually Jean-Michel Cousteau, in trying to get him to participate as a keynote on Thursday. And I think that it would be excellent, but he requires a donation to his nonprofit organization, and that's kind of the sticking point. Cal LAFCO does not pay individuals to come in, even though they always get some kind of a contribution to a nonprofit.
Well, Jeff said he'd cover it. Thanks, Jeff.
So if Jeff,
What I would
go ahead,
add,
Jeff.
what I would add to that, though, is that his typical speaker fee is about $25,000 at a conference, and this is substantially less. So, if we can, come up with it. They didn't give me a hard figure, but it's less than 5,000, and somewhere around 2.
I think legal counsel maybe has some comments here. No.
I was conferring with the clerk. I'm sorry. Was there a question for me?
About if a donation was from Santa Barbara LAFCO? No, not for you.
I apologize. I was distracted there. I missed the question entirely. I heard the fee was involved. I didn't catch the final dollar amount. And are you asking if that's a proper LAFCO expenditure? Is that the question? It's for a public purpose to enhance the success of the conference so that you can have a successful conference when you meet with your colleagues from around the state. So I think it would be permissible. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying I don't think it's illegal.
Mr. Hood, is that from a budget perspective? Before I'm just.
Well, we did, Commissioner, we did actually budget some additional money for travel and for conference expenses because we're not traveling outside of the Santa Barbara County, so I think we could probably cover that if we wanted to. We could also make if your commission wanted to, also make a donation to Cal LAFCO, and they could pay the expenses, but I think just a direct, I'm not sure of the exact amount. We don't want to just have an open checkbook, but we should probably find out how much it would be before we make that commitment.
Okay, Commissioner Seves?
Thank you. They have an individual who's raising money for the conference. Couldn't we challenge them with coming up with another 5,000 just for this?
That's actually a really good question. The challenge has been Cal LAFCO just has not taken a position on paying for speakers. And so if we say, and it's the only organization that I've been involved with, and I'm involved in a lot of them, that has that type of policy. But if we say, hey, you guys raise the money, and we give it to them, they would probably redirect it somewhere else.
I think we should probably at least ask them.
Okay.
I think it's, whether they've not done it before is not the question. And it's not going to this individual as a speaking fee, it's going to a nonprofit that he sponsors. So I think it's a legitimate expense. I did have one question though,
Commissioner Seves, I have asked Cal LAFCO and they said no.
They said no? Then maybe we could start asking some people.
How many LAFCOs are there?
There's 58. There's one in every county.
Would it be appropriate to send a letter to every Cal LAFCO and ask them to contribute a certain amount? Well, you don't have to answer that. That's just a consideration.
I think that we, if the commission wants to, could accommodate it through the budget, but I'd really like to know ahead of time what the amount would be. If they come back and say it's going to be 10,000 or 20,000, I think that less than 5,000 is probably, if your commission agrees that that's appropriate, that we could do it. I really don't want to wait too much longer to, if this individual is willing to do it, and I think it would be an excellent keynote on Thursday. I think that would be exceptional if we could do it.
Commissioner Stark?
I think it's fine. I think we should just make a brief contribution. I think 5,000 is too much. Maybe half that or $2,000 with a not to exceed amount, and hopefully maybe make a last ditch effort to explore alternative funding sources before we dip into our budget. But I think Mr. Cousteau is a very interesting individual, and he's got some, I think, unique views on the oceanic environment. It's worth having. Otherwise, we could just ask the mayor, I suppose.
Commissioner Loveney.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing as far as I think we should vote to make the contribution and then try to backfill it so in the interest of time. But I would think that there'd be a corporate sponsor out there somewhere in Santa Barbara that would step up and sponsor, especially somebody that's related to, his work, that would probably jump at the chance to Mr. Cousteau as presented by X corporation. So,
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I mean, it's interesting. Our theme is, orchards to oceans, and he's talking about the ocean. So, I mean, I think if we can get the amount nailed down, and if it's, $5,000 or less, I would certainly be supportive of that. And I think that we should then make that commitment, since we may have extra funds available in that account anyway because of the travel savings. And then if we can get a corporate sponsor to kind of backfill, some or all of it, then that will be a benefit to us. But I think that would be, he would be a tremendous speaker, and I think that, being in an oceanside community with the theme that we have, it would be perfect, and I think we should do that.
Commissioner Morehouse.
Yeah, and I think that probably would be a good idea to have a not to exceed amount, and then try to backfill it with some corporate sponsorship. The problem we have with the corporate sponsorship, I'm not sure, we'll have to ask Cal LAFCO about this, how it works, but we have not been allowed to go out and solicit sponsorships. We've had to turn names over to an agency that does all the requests. We're not allowed to solicit. So I'm not sure how soliciting funds through our local corporations would be perceived by Cal LAFCO, if we would even be allowed to do that. But there might be a way for us to at least approach Cal LAFCO and say, here's a corporate sponsor that may want to sponsor this, and specifically solicit them for the Cousteau presentation. I feel like, I know a month ago the date was, I had him for the date, and I just haven't been able to nail down finding out how we were going to fund it. So the sooner we say, yeah, we fund it, then I can really start the negotiation of getting it as much below 5 as possible.
Would it be permissible for a corporate sponsor to reimburse us and not go through Cal LAFCO?
Yeah, I would think that perhaps we, Santa Barbara Cal LAFCO, in discussing this with Paul, I think that we as Santa Barbara Cal LAFCO would be the sponsor of it, but let's continue to try to get somebody else to sponsor it. They
But I'm just saying,
would reimburse
I'm just
LAFCO.
talking about the contribution. Instead of going through the state, it can reimburse us.
Yeah, I think that would be desirable if that's legal.
Mr. Hood, I had a question about your staff report on the first page. I think it's a typographical error, but I just wanted to confirm. Under the mobile workshop and special events, where it says the traditional beer and wine.
Completion?
Is it completion or competition, or or did you meant to say completion?
Slash competition. His wine competition.
No one can leave till it's complete.
I was typing really fast.
When the bottle's empty. All right. Is there any direction or motion for this? Or? No?
We have direction, I think.
Okay.
The second page, you're talking about needing a LAFCO, Santa Barbara LAFCO person.
Okay, business item 2?
I just had a question to Paul on page, the second page dealing with the conference schedule.
Yes.
On the 1:30 to 2 o'clock, you're saying need a SB LAFCO person. Has that been taken care of?
Actually, Chairman Geyer, we're trying to have somebody, usually it's the local LAFCO chairman or a designee. We've had Commissioner Welt, who was on Cal LAFCO Board of Directors. He was somebody we were thinking about, but I think we're open to having a representative from the local LAFCO. I have Mayor Helene Snyder, who has accepted the invitation to welcome on behalf of the city. So she would be on the welcoming committee, but somebody from the local LAFCO would also be appropriate.
No, actually, Commissioner Welt was the one that was going to do it. So we better check with him first.
Okay.
All right, anything else on that item? Yeah? You want to be the alternate?
Mr. Chairman, I have one additional comment. Now I'm thinking about it. The LAFCO 101 session that's scheduled, I think it's on the opening morning, is from 10 to noon on Wednesday, is available to not only LAFCO representatives, but anyone that's interested in finding out about the basic LAFCO process. And we've been trying to do some outreach on what LAFCO is and what the authorities of LAFCOs can be throughout the state. $35 registration, and anyone that's interested, as long as they fill out a registration form, can attend. And it's a 2-hour session. I think it would be very enlightening for folks that don't know much about LAFCOs. And I'll send out the registration form.
All right, business item 2.
Yeah, one last thing. I'm not sure what direction I have as far as trying to negotiate for the speaker. Did we have a not to exceed?
Maybe a motion would be good on that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that that we move forward and have Commissioner Morehouse finalize Mr. Cousteau's participation with a donation not to exceed $5,000, and also, you know, in the hope that we might have a corporate sponsor that would support our local LAFCO with that amount.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Now, business item 2.
Chair Geyer and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider nominations for the 2016-2017 Cal LAFCO Board of Directors and provide direction to staff as necessary.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if any representative of our local LAFCO is interested in being appointed or being considered to be appointed to the Cal LAFCO Board of Directors, there's a couple of vacancies open in the coastal region. The county and special district members' terms are up.
We're not sure if the incumbents are running, but if now would be the time for nominations. And the nominations would be accepted until September 26th. So this is probably the last time that you have a chance to nominate somebody from Santa Barbara LAFCO.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to information item number 1. Oh, no, business item 3.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to consider the assignment of voting delegates for the 2016 LAFCO Annual Conference.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we need to delegate voting delegates, or at least select voting delegates. Usually it's the chairman and an alternate that votes at the LAFCO elections for board of directors, bylaw changes, and anything else that might take place. So you should accept nominations for voting delegates.
I'll nominate Commissioner Seves. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
And who's the alternate?
Okay, now we move on to information item 1.
Mr. Chairman, we need an alternate as well.
Okay, I'll be the alternate.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want a motion on that?
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Did you get that?
Informational item number 1 is to receive and file results of the protest hearing for the West San Ynez annexation to the San Ynez Community Services District.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we did hold a protest hearing, as you've heard quite a bit about over the last couple of months, on June 30th at the San Ynez Community Services District offices. It was well attended by several residents of the annexation area. And we have taken time to make sure that we are absolutely correct on the protests that are filed by registered voters and landowners. And without going into too much detail about how many registered voters and filed protests and landowners, to send it to an election, it would require 25% or greater of the registered voters. The final tally was 21.49%, so less than the 25% total. In terms of landowners owning the land, finding that the landowners who owned land filed protests in excess of 25%. The final tally was 22.19%, so significantly less than 25%. And so I notified the commission, as well as the district, notified the commission first about the results of the protest hearing, notified the district general manager, and he is in the audience today. And my determination, as delegated by you, is that the change of organization, the West San Ynez annexation, would proceed without an election. And I was generally offering to send out a notice to all of the registered voters and landowners, as we did for the protest hearing. Talking with General Manager Jeff Hodge, he wanted to send out my notice, which is attached in your staff report, and do an outreach to the registered voters and landowners. And he can comment on that, and he's more than willing to do that. And I think that might be a gesture, since we've had some discussion in the past about the amount of outreach that the property owners and registered voters have received. And so that was an offer, and I think that would be a good offer, and I'm sure he's willing to talk about that if you wish.
Commissioner Starr?
Do we need to authorize you to do that, or authorize that form of notice?
I think I could do that independently, since you gave me the authority to hold the protest hearing and to follow up on it. But you may want to hear from the general manager just for a comment.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just so I understand, on the landowner vote, it needed to be 25%? and they got to 24.67%?
It needed to be 20, go ahead.
There's two things that need to be satisfied. One, it needs to be 25% of the landowners in the area, including individuals who might co-own a piece of property. If 3 people own a piece of property, or if a husband and wife, those would all be counted as individual landowners. And so you need at least 25% of all of those landowners. Then in addition to that, you need to have valid protests from people who own at least 25% of the assessed value of the land in the affected area. So if you've got over 25% of the number of landowners, they also need to own at least 25% of the assessed value in the area. And that's what took quite a bit of work. The assessor's office doesn't easily have that information available, so they had to actually run some programs to not just identify the number of owners, but then parcel out the percentage of ownership of each particular individual, because that's exactly what the code says they had to do. So was that clear at all?
Well, yes and no. So just, so it's not an either or?
It's both.
It's both.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the only way to do it. So so I thought it was both the landowners and the registered voters.
It can be either or.
Either or.
Either
Yeah.
or.
But when you're into the landowner protest, you have to have both of those criteria, the number of owners.
So they have to meet 25% in both, at minimum, of both of those criteria. Okay.
For
But
landowners, yes.
And then for the registered voters, what was the percentage and what did we get?
According to the report, it equaled 21.49%.
And we needed what percentage for
25%.
registered voters?
25.
Also 25%.
So there were 712 registered voters, 153 filed written protest,
Valid written
validated written protests, and that constituted 21.49%.
Okay. I think I asked this question before, but I can't remember if we heard the answer or not. Is there anything in the rules that when a special district files an application, that there is some kind of required notice of that district that needs to go out to those affected ahead of the LAFCO notice, because that's at least the third step, as far as I can tell, in a process? I mean, the first would be, we've made this application, notification, and then maybe a follow-up would be nice, is that it's now, the application's complete and it's been set for hearing, kind of a notification, or any required notification ahead of, by the time it gets to LAFCO.
That's a very good question. I researched that, and I didn't find any requirement that there be a legal notice provided by the district before they adopt the application. Just the Brown Act. Yeah, Bill says just the Brown Act as far as a agenda publishing.
Okay. Well, I think I mentioned the comments that I've been receiving from the community in public comment at the last meeting, but needless to say, from LAFCO's perspective, we thought that this was a very, logical kind of annexation, and nobody really showed up to talk about it. But they didn't show up to talk about it, not because they weren't concerned, but because they just simply didn't know. And apparently there had been some kind of notification that Heal the Ocean had sent out in the fall, but people didn't connect that with the CSD. And even when the LAFCO notification came out, people were confused, and I think some people threw that away. So I think the fact that they came, all of these came over 20% when they needed 25%, based on really a last-minute ditch, effort by people that were kind of waking up to what was going on and didn't understand it, and so just wanted to vote against it because they really didn't know what was going on, shows that, if there had been some notice ahead of time and they had a better understanding of what was going on, for them and how it was going to affect them, the benefits as well as some of the costs of being annexed, that, they may have easily met the threshold. So, the annexation is going to go forward but that doesn't mean that it hasn't left a very bad taste in the mouth of a lot of people there that's going to, I fear, will have, kind of a long-lasting effect for, things that the CSD is doing, including, the other application that's still pending, as well as, other LAFCO actions. So, I just think it's really important that, that the whole noticing and understanding of what's going on be crystal clear to the community. This is a community that, really wants to know what's going on, and I think that, during public comment, Ms. Jones even commented on the fact that, we've heard from people that are in the annexed area or people that are in the proposed sphere of influence area, but people that are already within the district that are going to want to know what's going on. And didn't know what was going on either, and how that was going to affect their rates potentially for new projects or new annexed areas coming forward. So it's really, really unfortunate. I really try hard in my supervisor role to try to bring everybody along and have information go out there. And if I had realized that this wasn't going to be happening, I would have tried to do it on my own. But it's very unfortunate how it's turned out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
And I think, for me, hindsight is 20/20. And when I presented the application to your commission for approval, I did a display ad because there's over 1,000 registered voters and labels and landowners that needed to be notified. And my decision was based on the fact that the district had done some outreach when they adopted the resolution of application to LAFCO. And so we didn't do an extensive mailing. In hindsight, we probably should have done that so that if the district didn't hold, notify enough people when they, adopted the resolution to LAFCO, that we would have had those people here at our LAFCO meeting, and they would have helped you in making your decision. So when we mailed out the notices for the protest hearing, I think a lot of people thought that was the first time they'd ever heard of this. And we had a very impassioned group of property owners and voters at the protest hearing. I'd say there was over 50 people. And lasted for 40 minutes. And basically, what I was telling them is that we're not debating the annexation merits at this point. This is a protest hearing, that we're here to accept any written protests that you may wish to file. If you're opposed to it, now is the time to do that. And I found myself, kind of not wanting to get into the merits of what the annexation was going to do, because I think that's not our job at the protest hearing. It's really the district's job to sell it to the property owners, because they would be the ones that would be connecting and paying the charges for the collection system to be connected. So that is something that I think I learned, and hopefully the district did at the same time, that we would do a more extensive outreach, if not at the district, at LAFCO when we have our hearing.
Okay, I think we have two speakers.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, we have two requests to speak on this item. Our first speaker is Jeff Hodge, to be followed by Karen Jones.
Yes, Jeff Hodge, General Manager for the San Ynez Community Service District. And I do thank you for your help and your patience with this, because once again, we worked through this and have learned a lot too, hence asking for the opportunity to send out that letter now. Because within this annexation, there are three subsets of that are areas that already have existing lines running in front of their houses. This is the northern section that's been a patchwork of different emergency connections that have come in over time because sewer lines already exist in the northern portion. The middle portion, which will be a long-term, and I think that's where you probably heard from the most of the citizens, was, how's that going to impact them? That's very long-term. And then you have the southern portion, which through the problems areas and other EHS, this is the Horizon Stadium area, has a great deal of failing septic systems. Since the LAMP went into effect, I've had 4 calls along the Horizon area coming from EHS. So we apologize for that too. We're learning about that. As I came to the May meeting, I'd said at that time that I was going back to the board to ask for that funding because once again, the way our board's set up, I don't have a great discretion on expending those monies. So as we're going through that, learning that same process. So appreciate your patience and your understanding, and definitely thank your executive director, Paul Hood, for that. And then I'd reached out to some other SLO County and Monterey County LAFCOs to help myself through this project because of myself and my staff here. That's a third of our staff at the CSD. So we're learning, and we greatly appreciate that. But once again, we want to send out the letter. We had sent out the letter after the notification went out. Our intent was to get that out before that, but that did not happen. Now we've better perfected the labeling and stuffing and folding process, so the logistics can be expedited on our end. And so with that, I think you can see that we need to hit those 3 areas separately, speak to them separately as to what it means to them. More importantly, right now, it doesn't mean anything financially to them because we're not forcing any pipelines in any of the area. Now we're going to have the discussion about how we go about getting those lines if they want those in those areas and providing with them the options and education on this. So with that, I appreciate once again what this board does as we just sat through earlier. We can see the fun and confusion as to how many different letters you get and what do they mean. But with that, I appreciate that, and we look to make those amends and get the word out there correctly. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I ask the speaker a question?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Hodge, I've heard a number of comments about the fact that your website has been down for a number of months. Is it operational yet?
It will be as soon as probably 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks, it'll be operational. Just because, that's kind of the normal way where people will, look up and an easy way for you to post all this information besides trying to do a direct mailing to people. And it's, of course, much easier to keep timely and update. So it's good to hear that it'll be up and running.
And we appreciate that because, the one we had before was free, and hence why it was not very, didn't have a lot of gigabytes. We could put anything there and stuff. And with this one now, we have ones like the Water District and our Solvang has also, so that we can get that information up there and we don't have to be coding wizards to figure out how to do that. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karen Jones, who is our final speaker.
Have a bottle of water.
These meetings are long, and they're not that fun to attend. They are interesting, and I brought a young friend with me, and he assures me he's not bored to death. But I'm here. I already spoke a little bit about this, but my son and his wife bought a property, and I believe it closed March of 2015. And we were involved in helping them with that. And they asked about sewer. There was nothing coming up. That was a big concern. Your septic tank, having to replace it. It's hard to scrape together the money for a down payment. My son isn't here today. He's out selling beer. His wife is at nursing school. They're trying to pick their kid up. It's really hard for people to go to these meetings, and you guys know it. You're probably the only ones who diligently attend. I don't know any of you. I have met my representative, Ms. Farr. I met Mr. Stark because I ran for supervisor. And I think I might make you nervous, but I don't think you're afraid of me. When I went to the service district meeting and did the same thing, I wanted to speak. I've never been violent with anyone. I have no history of violence. I have a history of being unconventional, but I'm not dangerous, unless you think words are dangerous. But before I could speak, I was admonished by the manager of the office. She told me that if I said anything confrontational or was threatening to the board, I would be arrested. And I had never even been to a meeting before there. I mean, I've been to these meetings, but like I said, I say things other people don't say sometimes, but I'm not a dangerous person. I had no idea why I would be admonished in that fashion, but later I got a phone call from the other guy at the meeting. He said, oh, that was me. The sheriff's department contacted me because the meeting with the irate people, he apparently saw a board member and said, what the heck are you guys doing? And the sheriff's department contacted him. And there has been a pattern among our local institutions lately of calling law enforcement. So these meetings are boring enough without being scary. But that said, I don't know what the policy and procedure is, so I'm trying to have 30 seconds, about notifying those of us who are already in the district. It seems we should be notified. You did the Santa Maria Times. I don't even know a single person in the valley that reads that, although I'm sure there are some. We're news press people in my neighborhood, and I don't even take that anymore. I go to NewsHawk. So I think the idea of getting the website up is great. I asked about the website before the meeting. The LAFCO website said the meeting was at 7 p.m., but I went and checked. I called the office to make sure it was starting at 7. I was told, no, we changed it to 5:30. LAFCO screwed up. I said, you don't even have a website up. So this ongoing complaint of no website, this isn't something that just happened. It's something that's been brought to the attention of the office. And that's what bugs us, is just like, why does everything have to be so clandestine? And why are we under threat if we complain? You guys all work for us, and you guys are being super cool, and that's how it ought to be. So that's, oh, can I say one more thing very quickly about the, this is about, I like that when you were talking about Cuyama and the acre thing. I ran for supervisor, and I didn't know anybody, but I became friends with Joan Hartman and Bob Field. They taught me a lot. And Bob says, under the state and county rules, because I'm like, why are they even doing this? What's the big rush? He said, you can't have development density greater than 1 home per acre. So once you go on the sewer, it changes the numbers and it gets around a hurdle for people who are pro-high density, like the Chamber of Commerce, who are really big on development. And I think it has an appearance of impropriety for the manager of the CSD to serve on the board of the chamber. These are the kind of things why we overreact and seem suspicious in the Santa Ynez Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Richardson.
This is a question for council. Is there an opportunity for a do-over? I hear this, we're learning process. We didn't know, we didn't understand. This is a learning process, both for 2 of the members of the authorities. It seems to me that if it's a learning process, it's terrible to learn it on the backs of the people who've got to pay for it. And I would just suggest that there's an opportunity for a do-over, that we give the people in the district, the proposed districts, the opportunity to do it again with the proper notification. I know that when you go before a board, the complainant has to provide addresses so that people within the area of under question, within 500 feet of that area, get notified. It didn't appear that these folks had got notified appropriately. So if there's any opportunity that there's a chance for a do-over, I think we ought to consider it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Richardson, no, there is not. I would note that, I think Commissioner Farr hit on it, the notice for the actual petition by the agency was pretty limited. I think it was just a Brown Act notice required. We found nothing in the statute. We heard about outreach by Heal the Ocean, but we didn't see anything. But when LAFCO got involved, LAFCO did it by the book. They did a newspaper ad, which is often missed. We get that, but then they followed that up with individual mailed notice to each landowner and each voter in the affected area, and that was a lot of work. I mean, your staff did a massive mailing, well, massive for the small staff we have, to get that out on time. And individual mailed notice is usually pretty good notice, but it is, as pointed out, pretty late in the process at that point. It was after your hearing. And obviously, it sounds like you would have appreciated more input before you made your decision on the proposal, but the matter is finished. The protest hearing failed, and Mr. Hood was going to record it in due course.
Thank you. Commissioner Morehouse?
Yeah, I want to thank you for handling this vote. It was definitely done a lot better than the time it was done when my district was involved. And the do-over cost our ratepayers $250,000 in excess of it, because of mistakes LAFCO made. And so I'm just glad that those type of mistakes weren't made this time. It was done appropriately, right, and, you know, by the letter of the law, the protest failed. So you can keep doing it over till you get the votes you want, but that's not how the law is.
Thank you. We're going to have a changing of commissioners. The next item then is item 2.
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, informational item number 2 is to consider review of the Santa Barbara LAFCO Commissioner Handbook, Section 7, Policy Guidelines and Standards, and Section 9, LAFCO Budget and Financial Procedures.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest that we take one item out of this review of policies and continue the remainder until the next meeting, since we've had a long meeting. The one item that I think that you may want to take a look at is the draft policies concerning submittal of written or email comments.
Exhibit C.
Pardon me?
Exhibit C.
Yes, Exhibit C.
Very last page.
That's correct. And there have been some comments from commissioners concerning the late submittal of written and email correspondence to your commission. And so we've drafted some policies. You might want to take a quick look at those. Legal counsel and myself and Chairman Guyer took a look at this. And it's really very difficult for your staff, particularly the clerk staff, to continually send out these emails to commissioners, either if they're emails or written correspondence. Up until last night, we were still getting copies of emails. Commissioner Wolf asked me if I had seen the map that was posted on the screen. It came in like 2 days ago, and I sent it out for posting. There was also information that commissioners are asking me about that are sent directly to commissioners that are emails, and I haven't even seen them. And so I get questions that, what do we do with these, or what do you think? And I can't comment because I haven't seen those emails. They're not directed to me, they're sent to the commissioners. So this is getting to be almost not a crisis, but it's a kind of a real sticking point as far as getting stuff to the commission. So I'd like you to take a look at that and see if there's something you can limit the amount of emails that are not only accepted by us, but are sent out to the commission to 48 hours or, the Tuesday before the meeting or something that's not invalidating some kind of a due process clause, but trying to get information to you that at least you have time to look at and consider in making your decision. So those are my comments.
Right, and I think one thing we talked about was having the submittals come through staff rather than directly to the commissioners.
Right. I think that would be helpful. I'm, not trying to, control the information flow, but if I don't get it and the commission gets it, then I'm asked questions that I can't respond to. And we're more than happy to, in the limited instances, it's not that many, but some folks just decide that they want to contact the commissioners at their district, city, or county. Public member many times doesn't get that because their emails are not available. So if that happens, then it's the responsibility of staff to forward it. So why not make it staff's responsibility to get everything to the commissioners when we get late correspondence or emails?
Right, I think what we talked about was not limiting the public from being able to send something to a commissioner, but stuff that would be submitted to the commission itself, a policy that it does come through staff. Is there any comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
Right. The microphone is not behaving well, I suppose.
Operator malfunction?
Well, I confess I'm a little fuzzy, but here's my comment. It's actually more of a question for council through the chair. My understanding is that although agencies routinely submit deadlines for submitting things, that there's a problem with CEQA analysis and that there's no real way to prevent documents submitted even at the last minute in connection with environmental review from being part of the analysis. So they have to be handled. And if I understand right, there was a legislative effort to try to fix this glitch in CEQA, and it failed. So the agencies that deal with CEQA throughout the state have to accommodate a certain amount of late hits that are really irritating to everybody concerned in order to comply with CEQA. And I just sort of throw this to council to see it to the extent that we can keep out late hits without subjecting ourselves to CEQA problems. It would be good.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stark, yep, we're looking for input at this stage, so certainly we can take a closer look at that particular issue. I don't know that we have an obligation under CEQA to accept documents via email. We can make people submit hard copies and things of that nature. So I noted that, and we're only seeking direction here today because this was done fairly quickly to get your input and then go off and maybe let some stakeholders have a shot at it and then come back with something more refined.
Commissioner Seves?
Yeah, I like the language dealing with there's no guarantee that email is going to be sent or received, I should say. But my question has to do with emails that are sent to commissioners will not be included in the record. And I'm just wondering, if I receive an email that not everybody's copied on, if I emailed that to the clerk within the time frame, then that would be part of the public record.
A commissioner always has the option, if you get something you think is important evidence for the hearing, you could forward that to the clerk and get it into the record. You have that option, but this would make it an option, not an obligation.
Is there a concern with ex parte communications with regards to receiving an email and not disclosing it?
There's a
We don't have a
concern, there
policy
could be.
for that.
If you're relying on evidence not in the record and you don't disclose that, that could be potentially a problem.
So shouldn't we have a policy that if we get, I could see bombarding the clerk with all these emails, but I think we should be better safe than sorry with regards to having the communication logged as an official response to this commission. If you're going to leave it up to me or leave it up to commissioner and make a decision as to what we feel is important, we run the risk of having something not entered into the record that probably should be. I don't know. I'm asking for your legal opinion on that.
You would have some options. One is you could forward everything. Another is you could have a standard email response that says if you want to make a comment on this matter for the commission, you need to send it to the clerk. You could even have a form email ready to go for that. Or you could read it and decide. Sometimes, a certain email, it's just maybe does or doesn't have value, but they would be on notice that through this policy that they should send it to the clerk's office if they want it to be presented to the commission.
Right. The policy would cover it.
But and this is not meant to tie your hands. If you receive anything, if your practice becomes you forward everything, that's your choice. We're not trying to regulate the commissioners.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a follow-up question on the same issue? So, right below that, it says email submittals shall not exceed 1 page when printed on hard copy and shall not include attachments. Why is that? I understand the disclaimer. You're kind of sending it at your own risk, but I'm just wondering why that's being requested.
For the simple reason that we're getting petitions now signed by many people, and in one occasion recently, one email was overlooked, and that turned out to have, 40 other emails attached to it. And then we took a lot of heat for that at the staff level, which was, I thought, a little, unfair, but it happened. So the thing is, if you want to submit something longer, the obligation would be on the submitter to put it into a hard copy and submit it along with the number of copies that are required for the commission. Because right now, your staff is doing all the copying, printing, and distribution, and instead of the person submitting the comments. So that's the thought. You don't have to go there, but that's the thought.
Okay, well, I think that deserves some more discussion. And then the other question I had, Mr. Chair, before maybe we go to Mr. Allen, is above that it says Members of the public may submit comment letters, other documents. However, such documents will not be included in the record before the commission if submitted prior to, and then pick one. And then the second one is an application petition has been filed with the executive officer and found complete for processing. It seems like once an application is filed, people start to find out about it, and they don't maybe understand when it becomes complete or whatever, but they kind of want to get in with their comments as soon as they know that it's been filed. And so, and I realize that it could be filed but not found complete for processing for months. And so maybe that was the idea, that comments come in early and then months go by before it's deemed complete. But I don't know that people are going to understand that they can't do that, because I think once it somehow becomes public, they're going to comment on it.
Mr. Chairman, I was thinking of the Natural History Museum reorganization, where we were receiving comments with the same letter for months, for like 5 months, and we actually did copy all of those when we had the LAFCO meeting on that to consider it. But it was, yeah, it was very, we don't know what to do with them. Basically, you don't want to send them out to the commission unless there's a matter set for hearing. And so it raises confusion. Well, we submitted all this information. Does the commission have it yet? No, because we haven't scheduled a hearing, but we will give it to the commission when the hearing is set.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. So they can submit it, it's just not going to be sent out. Okay.
Or it even could be sent out if for information, but I sort of think of this a little bit in terms of litigation. What's your record you're going to put together to go to court? And so we've got all these submittals sometimes way before the actual hearing or even the notice of hearing. So, and I think the experience has been these people show up anyway and still make the same comments. So I don't think we're cutting off anybody's ability to file comments. This just gives the clerk a bright line on when to know what's in the record and what's not, so that the record can then be prepared and provided to the commission. Because the clerk's office was going through the history of all these comments and calling the executive director and me, saying, well, what do we have to forward to the commission? And they erred on the side of caution, and I think they collected everything they could possibly find, going back for quite a while. And again, there's some expense to that and time and effort. And I don't know that anybody then didn't comment again anyway, given the magic of word processing these days. It's pretty easy to submit another document. So that's the thought there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment on the issue of the board member or commission member, submissions to our office. I mean, it's always been the case that when a board member or a commission member sends something to us and says, hey, this is in the record, that's obviously in the record. In practical terms, we don't, most of the stuff I think that goes to the board of supervisors or to the commission is sent to us as well. So it's not, I don't think there's a lot of documents floating around out there that are different like that. And so I just wanted to point that out, and that was no intent there to restrict the ability of the commissioner or a board member, obviously, from putting something into the record.
If I could, Mr. Allen, my point was that if we sent you something and it was a duplicate, great, but perhaps it's something you had not seen or received.
Yeah, then we would put that in the record.
I have a comment on that. Receiving emails from individual constituents, in my mind, are lobbying efforts. And to distribute that to the rest of the body is lobbying the rest of the body with an opinion of one of your constituents. So I think the argument about not providing the committee with a email from to the council, to a commissioner, or the council, or the executive director is a fair one. If the constituent wants to address the board, then it should be sent to the board as a distribution to the board, not to an individual member.
Commissioner Stark?
That's a good perspective too.
I simply wanted to point out a small typo in here. You've got the word bear spelled wrong, as in bear as unclothed, rather than bear as in bearing the risk. You might want, I don't know how.
I like the first.
Bear your soul? Well, I don't know about that part. That might be more horrifying than the other,
It's a work in progress. Okay. How do you want to leave this then? Just to come back with a final draft?
On this particular, Exhibit C, I think we can come back with some language that the commission can take a look at and make comments on. Regarding the remainder of the policies, we've continued this a couple of times, but I don't think now would be the time to go through anything dealing with all of this information in the commission's handbook, so we may want to put that off for a month.
Okay, yeah, we'll bring it back. My goal is to just kind of take us through the policy manual and see if it needs updating. Okay. Next item?
She's got everything.
Any commissioner announcements?
Nordstrom's and up and down. Oh.
Executive officer comments?
Mr. Chairman, for once, I don't have any.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
All right. With that, the meeting's adjourned.
Okay.